I thought we are going to be coming next after each other without me coming here to save time. Miss Eva Kiwango from UNAIDS. You have to come here, my sister.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Deputy Minister, Ms. Steve Letsike, other Deputy Ministers in absentia, the CEO of SANAC, Dr. Thembisile Khulu, representatives from government, civil society, development partners, young people present, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to deliver a message of support. But before I start, I would like to send our heartfelt condolences to the family of the former Deputy President of South Africa and to all South Africans. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to the Deputy Minister for convening us today. In 2021, Stats SA report showed that there were 34,000 cases of teenage pregnancy in 2020. And 668 of those were girls younger than 10 years old. I recall the former Deputy President in his capacity as the SANAC chairperson when he was speaking at a SANAC event in KZN, how he slammed the rising numbers of teenage pregnancy in the country, and he described teenage pregnancy as a blight on the moral standing of our society. He said, and I quote, "It is barbaric and condemns the lives of our children to lifelong scars and trauma. It stunts their development and ruins their future. The long-term economic, social, psychological, and legal effects of these statistics are disturbing, and we must act now." In the same year, in his World AIDS address in Shikundu village in Limpopo, former Deputy President Mabuza also spoke about teenage pregnancy, noting we cannot even begin to characterize this as teenage pregnancy, but an act of crime that needs to be prosecuted. It was very clear that we have a teenage pregnancy problem. And I know there are different schools of thought of how we should call it, whether it's teenage pregnancy, whether it's unintended pregnancy, etc. But we know that teenage pregnancy is high. It's leading to school dropouts. It's perpetuating HIV transmission, especially among young adolescent girls and young women, and it is perpetuated by GBV. Last month, UNAIDS launched a report on the cost of not realizing the sexual and reproductive health and rights of young people in Zimbabwe and South Africa. We use cost of inaction as an indicator of negative impact on the lives of people and communities, of not investing our resources in sexual reproductive health. The cost of inaction for young people is especially significant as the impact extends through most of their life. This report, and I urge you to read it, explores the cost of inaction in not realizing the sexual reproductive health needs of young people in South Africa, focusing on, in this report, the financial cost to the health system for not addressing teenage pregnancy is $180 million. Individual costs to the patient, to the young people, is $16 million. Opportunity costs, the loss of lifetime earnings for adolescent mothers due to dropping out of school, is $8.3 billion. opportunity costs, loss of lifetime earnings is $1.6 billion. The cost to second generation, especially the poorer outcomes faced by children of teenage mothers, were not able to quantify. The total costs for South Africa for early pregnancy is $10.3 billion. You can see why we cannot afford to not address this problem. As UNAIDS, we stand together with the rest of the UN system in South Africa, ready to support this initiative, Deputy Minister. And we urge all policymakers and all actors to come together to address this issue so that we make sure that, and I'm trying to skip quickly through the notes I was given, that real change requires a proactive, prevention-based response rather than a reactive one. This is the crux of what we're looking at in terms of the cost of inaction. We need to prevent teenage pregnancies, not react to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. Apologies for bullying you today. We're working on time. May I request a representative from SAF AIDS to meet someone outside? There's a bit of an emergency we need to sort out. Thank you very much. You?
All right. Honorable DMs and DG and colleagues, very good morning. My name is Yu from the United Nations Population Fund. Let me first really appreciate the leadership and commitment and dedication by the DM and the department on this important subject. Please allow me to share, actually in February last year, 2024, the United Nations established a task force dedicated to provide a collective support to the country in fighting teenage pregnancies. And we have many of the UN agencies mentioned here today. We have also UN Women, UNESCO, ILO, all rallied behind the government and partners in this fight. Actually, I still recall one of the recommendations is to have a ministerial, intergovernmental ministerial-led, campaign around that. I'm so happy to see the fruition of such an idea today. So let me just share maybe three quick reflections. First, I think it's very important to reshape the narrative. I have to start by saying that South Africa has achieved a significant reduction of teenage pregnancies since 2014. There were setbacks during COVID time, and it bounced back and plateaued. So what we need to do and prioritize is to accelerate the progress made in the past so that we can further and quickly reduce teenage pregnancies in South Africa. Second is to do with the message that is a long battle and a long fight, which requires a medium to longer term thinking, at the same time start addressing structural barriers that affects teenage pregnancies. But at the same time, there are quick wins because we know the hotspot districts, communities where perpetrates teenage pregnancies. Let's focus on these geographic locations. And we know, for example, in the last decades, we have around like 40,000 children born out of teen mothers below the age of 15. And what prevents the society coming together, pool resources to uplift those 40,000 children? And they are teenagers, 0 to 10 by now. So that they prevent a future that they become the victim of teen mothers themselves. Globally, there was in some country the evidence that almost 50% of those teenage pregnancies, their mothers are teen mothers. Last but not least, financing. UNMP at the moment is collaborating with the Medical Research Council and the TICO, a organization on digital tools, to look into a social impact bond for adolescent health. So I call upon partners and colleagues to look into innovative financing where possible, to join and to finance and invest the most precious assets of the country, the young girls and the young mothers, so that their full potential can be realized. So thank you very much.
Yes, please take the podium.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. The Honorable Deputy Minister, Steve Letsike, other Deputy Ministers in absentia, all protocol observed, dear colleagues, a very good morning to you all. My name is Shanaz Halabi. I'm the WHO Country Office Representative, and it's indeed a pleasure as WHO to have been given an opportunity to say a few words. Adolescent pregnancy remains a global public health concern with wide-reaching impacts on adolescent health, education, and future opportunities. Adolescents who give birth face higher risks of maternal and infant mortality compared with older women, while early pregnancies can restrict adolescents' choices, limiting their educational and economic prospects. These limitations often perpetuate cycles of poverty and inequality. In many parts of the world, adolescents, whether married or unmarried, lack access to information and resources necessary to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive health. This leaves them vulnerable to early pregnancies and unprepared to navigate the physical, emotional, and social changes that follow. Yet, there is so much to celebrate. Significant progress has been made in reducing adolescent pregnancy and child marriage globally. You just earlier on just talked about South Africa in terms of the statistics. Between 2000 and 2021, the global adolescent birth rate fell by 34%, and between 2010 and 2020, child marriage declined by 24%. These improvements underscore the fact that adolescent pregnancies are preventable. Let me emphasize that adolescent pregnancy is preventable when multi-sectoral efforts come together. So, Honorable Deputy Minister, I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for bringing different stakeholders together to address something that is preventable as well. Comprehensive sexual and reproductive health education has played a key role in driving these advances alongside supportive policies and programs. But progress is uneven, and we must sustain efforts to ensure that the most vulnerable groups of adolescent girls are not left behind. WHO has remained at the forefront of this effort. For instance, through the publication of the WHO recommendations on adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights of 2018, and just recently, 2 weeks ago, we disseminated the updated WHO guidelines on preventing early pregnancy and poor reproductive outcomes among adolescents in low and middle income countries. So I would recommend that we all look at this document as well. This updated guideline is essential to ensure that policies and programs reflect the realities adolescents face today, promoting bodily autonomy, informed decision-making, and access to services that support their rights. By implementing these recommendations, we will continue to strengthen the foundation for healthier and more equitable societies where every adolescent can thrive. Ensuring that adolescents have the information, resources, and support to exercise their sexual, reproductive health and rights is not only a matter of health, it is a matter of justice. All adolescents need to be empowered to make choices that lead to healthier, more fulfilling lives. If I may just take this opportunity, Director of Ceremony, just to indicate or just to highlight what you just mentioned when you started, to say that we've been through this conversation for a while. and something is missing as a nation. So we really do know what the issues are. The most important, what we now need to do is actually have radical implementations moving forward. So really, DM, once again, we want to really thank you for bringing us together, because as multi-stakeholders, we can come together and actually identify our next stage forward. I thank you all. Can I just go through?
When I leave my chair, you know what it means.
Thank you so much, Program Director. I stand here on behalf of a representative of United Nations Children's Fund, Miss Christine Muhigana. Unfortunately, she's out of country, and then I am here standing on her behalf. I would like to echo the appreciation to our Honorable Deputy Minister Letsike for convening all of us, the relevant stakeholders, government, NCSOs, and international organizations, to stand strong and unite to prevent this teenage pregnancy that is unfortunately quite prevalent in country. United Nations Children's Fund, as an agency that is focusing on children's issue, remain highly concerned of this particular trend of the recent increase in teenage pregnancy. While many of our earlier speakers highlighted the root causes and then some of the significant gain already made, we would like to highlight some of the significant distinctions in approach which we need to take. Teenage pregnancy has a sexual reproductive health rights aspect of the adolescent girls and then boys' life, but also there are aspects of exploitation and violence. And I think we also need to clearly separate and then tackle these issues separately. Especially for the girls who are at the adolescent age, there is a clear trend on exploitation. And I also would like to quote the recent South African Police Service statistics, the crime statistics. We have been seeing consistently 40% of all the sexual crimes committed in this country are against children, and predominantly over 95% against girls. And I think this is an important aspect to highlight as we move forward on this issue as well. It definitely has a strong linkage to address with the correlation with high prevalence of HIV/AIDS among adolescent girls. And we are already seeing that we need to tackle this issue together, not as a separate. We would like to appreciate the leadership of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons of Disability in convening us all relevant parties together, as we need to tackle this issue holistically. And then we have seen the Department of Basic Education contributing in comprehensive sexual education, Department of Health contributing in the adolescent-friendly sexual reproductive health services, as well as the police services and justice services that need to be condemning some of these violence against children, especially against girls. We also would like to highlight two important aspects. If we are missing something that we haven't done in the implementation, we would like to call for a stronger children's participation, especially adolescent girls and boys. I think sometimes we are very much focusing on adolescent girls who are the survivors and victims of teenage pregnancy. However, as we, as UNICEF, engaging with adolescent girls, they have been keep coming back to us saying, we shouldn't leave boys, because these boys are our partners in future. And these boys are not educated at the same time as we are, or the programs that are focusing on adolescent girls are not covering the boys adequately. So the adolescent girls themselves say we shouldn't leave boys and men behind. So we would like to call for the stronger participation of both adolescent girls and boys, and we should be also led by their voices, and then their behaviors need to be considered as we plan ahead. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants, especially young people who are among us, to join hands and then end this violence against children, and then also the teenage pregnancy crisis here in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, UN agencies, for your support under the coordination of SANAC. I think, colleagues, we've all heard the different speakers that have already taken the podium. their comments, their messages, they touching in the different aspects of our society and how teenage pregnancy is impacting from economic. We spoke about police statistics. We spoke about social outcomes, issues around poverty. So this is a multi-sectoral response that is required. And I think as we stand today and having this conversation in this room, we need to take into consideration the fact that we have a national strategic plan on HIV, TB, and STIs. We have a national strategic plan on gender-based violence. And teenage pregnancy remains central in us mitigating or achieving targets that are in these two NSPs. Because if we're saying teenage pregnancy, teenage and child pregnancy is a result of a violation. Therefore, it's gender-based violence. And we can't tackle gender-based violence and not tackle a teenage pregnancy. And we all know teenage pregnancy is a result of unprotected sex. So if you are then pregnant, you are then exposed or you are at a risk of acquiring HIV. Therefore, we shall not meet our HIV targets if we do not tackle teenage pregnancy. So while we tackling teenage pregnancy as a scourge on its own, but it has ripple effects, and the conversations are the same between GBV and HIV, and how they always centralize women vulnerable, and the perpetrators, we don't talk much about them. So as we continue, we are going to be getting 3 recordings from the key departments, messages from the Deputy Minister. We'll be getting police, DOJ, as well as DM in the presidency to give us messages of support following each other. Are we ready, IT? Thank you.
Persons with disability. Program Director, Deputy Minister of Women, Youth, Persons with Disability, Steve Letsike. Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. Andrew Snell. Deputy Director General, Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Ms. Chabalala. Deputy Secretary of Defense, M. Hendricks. Representative of the Gates Foundation, Dr. Jochen Pillay. Representative of the South African National AIDS Council, Dr. Nkensani Nkwashu. Representative of the United Nations Population Fund, Representative Mr. Tulani Mbata, and all senior officials from all the departments present here. Good morning to you all. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the discussion of a topic of great concern, teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy is not just a girl's issue. It's a societal issue that touches every household, every classroom, and every community. Teenage pregnancy is more than just a personal experience. It is a public concern because it affects your health, education, and future opportunities. South Africa has one of the world's highest teenage pregnancy rates. In the financial year 2024-2025, 847 cases were reported, with the leading province being KwaZulu-Natal. In this financial year, from April to July 2025, 120 cases have already been reported, with Western Cape leading. Many of these pregnancies happen while the girls are still learners at schools, and some younger than 16 years. I want to be very clear on this matter. The age of consent in South Africa is 16 years old. Therefore, it is against the law for anyone to have sex with someone below that age. This statutory law exists to protect minors from being sexually exploited. In other words, a child under the age of 16 cannot legally consent to sex because it constitutes statutory rape and it is punishable by law. As the concerned community and loving parents must fight this teenage pregnancy. The police cannot fight this battle alone. The whole of society and government should ensure that teenage pregnancies cases are reported and investigated, victims are supported and protected, offenders, especially adult preying on children, are appropriately punished. The South African Police Service Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Units, known as FCS units, are specially trained to investigate abuse and statutory rape cases. They are working tirelessly to ensure that perpetrators are arrested and prosecuted, and victims are also well assisted without judging them. Out of the 847 cases reported, 505 perpetrators were arrested, and out of 120 reported cases, 61 perpetrators were arrested. SAPS work with schools and social workers to identify vulnerable youth through our Safer School project. I'm happy to announce that the South African Police Service signed a cooperative agreement with the Department of Basic Education 2 weeks ago to ensure that our schools are safe for learners. From time to time, we will host community engagement to talk about teenage pregnancies and how we can stop them. To our teenagers, your future is bright. You have dreams and you have the right to grow, to learn, and to thrive without pressure, abuse, fear, and not living in a safe environment. Your future is worth protecting because you are the leaders of tomorrow. Speak out, don't be afraid. Whether you are facing pressure at home, at schools, or in a relationship, there are people who care and will help without judging you. Make informed choices and remember that education is your power and nobody can take it away from you. To the parents and guardians, talk to your children openly about sex, respect, consent, and responsibilities. Listen to the children without judgment. And don't let the streets or social media be their own teachers. You must be responsible as a parent to teach your children these difficult terms. To our communities, let us create safe spaces for our children to grow in a loving and caring environment. Together, let's challenge the silence and shame around teenage pregnancy and replace it with support, honesty, and action. Let us end the silence and report abuse cases where the law is potentially being broken. To school teachers, let's join hands together to ensure that our children knows what sexual abuse is. Teach them how to take care of their bodies and how not to allow anybody to touch them inappropriately. Work hard for them to trust you so that they can confide in you when they are abused. Your role is critical in eradicating this teenage pregnancy scourge. In conclusion, teenage pregnancy is a societal matter and need all of us to work together to protect girl child to realize her dreams. Let it not protect perpetrators because they are our relatives or they put food on our tables. Let us build a South Africa where every child is safe, every learner is supported, and every young person is empowered to choose their future. Thank you very much.
Very, very good morning to all, and in particular to my colleague, Deputy Minister Steve Letsike, the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, for bringing us together in this engagement on an emergency response to teenage pregnancy. I would dearly have loved to be with you in person, but unfortunately later this afternoon Minister Mmapaseka and I will be presenting and debating the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development's budget in Parliament. I think this engagement comes at a very, very opportune time, and it's wonderful to be part of a panel together with the Deputy Ministers of Basic Education, of Police, of Social Development and Health to discuss this very important matter of teenage pregnancy, which remains one of the most pressing challenges facing our nation. In 2024 alone, over 68,000 teenage girls gave birth, and of them, some 1,424 were between the ages of 10 and 14. These are not just statistics. These are children whose futures are at risk. Teenage pregnancy often leads to girls dropping out of school, to poverty, and to vulnerability to abuse. But beyond health and education implications, there's also a justice dimension, and that is where the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and the legislative framework plays such a vital role. The Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act ensures that perpetrators of statutory rape and sexual abuse are prosecuted. This legal framework acts both as a deterrent and a shield for vulnerable children. There has been some debate over the past few years about statutory rape and or whether all teenage pregnancies should be reported. But given the different circumstances and ages of the parties concerned, many would argue for a more nuanced approach. I think it's also important to make the point that not all teenage pregnancies are the result of statutory rape. So by way of illustration, if a child aged 16 or older can legally consent to sex, and if there was genuine, and I stress genuine consent, there is no legal basis to report it or to involve the police in any resulting pregnancy. But I just want to go back and stress that that consent must be genuine. And evaluating the genuineness of that consent, we must take into account the prevailing socio-economic conditions in our society, as well as the gender power relations that exist in our society. So, if a child aged 16 or 17 is pregnant, but the sex was not consensual, that is rape, and it must be reported immediately to the police. The Teddy Bear Clinic case made significant changes to the law on statutory rape, particularly for children between 12 and 16. Because of this case, the law was amended to decriminalize consensual sexual activity between children aged 12 to 15. As the law stands now, no child below the age of 12 can ever consent
to the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Ms. Mmapaseka, Steve Letsike, our partners across government and civil society, as well as the young women and girl children that are joining us as we discuss this very important and crucial matter that is of national importance, which is teenage pregnancy. I want to, of course, first start by apologizing for not being able to be with you physically, as I believe that this conversation is one that is long overdue. We have, ladies and gentlemen, seen the very scary numbers of girl children between the ages of 10 and 19 giving birth. And the crisis of teenage pregnancy is one that we as a society have regrettably allowed to become normalized. We have, over the years, coming from the communities that we come from, allowed a situation wherein a 15-year-old giving birth is something that we have normalized, which is why we no longer even view it as a rape, but rather we view it as teenage pregnancy. And I think one of the first starting blocks in us confronting this, what I believe is actually a pandemic, is really to start to change the language around this particular topic. That is it correct for us to talk about a 12-year-old giving birth as teenage pregnancy, or should we actually be giving it the correct label, which is actually rape? Because we do know that the age for statutory rape is 16 years old. So I believe that in framing this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, it will be important for us to frame it within the correct context of what it actually is. And the framing of the conversation starts with us labeling things correctly. Because unless we do that, we are not going to change the mindset of abnormalizing that which has become so normal in our society, so normal for our young girls to be taken advantage of by older men, by older boys, and as a result, trapping them into this life of poverty, trapping them into this life of abuse, trapping them into this life of ruining their futures, by leaving them, and in most cases they actually leave them with these children, and they don't even take care of the children. So I think as a first start, we need to frame the conversation correctly. Secondly, I also believe that as part of us coming together around this topic, what are the fundamental problems in our society that we need to address as a collective that will ensure that the future and the life of the girl child is firstly protected, it is safeguarded, and it is valued the same way than that of a boy child is valued. And these are just some of the things that I think are important in us joining hands to confront this particular pandemic that we are seeing on the rise in our society. And as a Deputy Minister in the Presidency, I would want to commit myself joining hands with yourselves and across the government departments that we believe should form part of this discussion. Your Department of Social Development, our departments of basic education.
Good morning, we can hear you.
Departments of higher education, because some of the boys actually do form part of that particular sector. And really across our government departments to say, how do we not just have the conversation, but have the correct conversation with the correct framing, the correct context, to say how do we join hands in responding to this particular issue. So I'd like to commit myself to working with yourselves, and also wish you well as you continue to deliberate, but also to say that I do look forward to us coming up with a plan of action that we are all collectively going to implement in ensuring that the conversation that we have around the plight of young women and their future in this country is one that is changed and differs from that we are having right now, and that we actually confront this crisis that entraps the girl child into a particular life that recycles the cycle of poverty, that recycles the cycle of gender-based violence, that recycles all of the trappings that we see women, particularly Black women in our communities, continue to confront. So I want to wish you well and also look forward to engaging you further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, colleagues, those were messages that were recorded from Honorable Boishelo from the Department of Police, Honorable Nell from Department of Justice, and Honorable Mhlauli from the Deputy Minister in the Presidency. I am now going to request the NYDA chairperson, Ms. A. Luaga, to come and give her message of support.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for being afforded the opportunity to give a message of support on behalf of the National Youth Development Agency. Program Director, in the interest of time, allow me to stand on the protocol that has already been observed and really indicate to the distinguished guests, to the media, and the relevant individuals that are joined virtually as well as physically this afternoon that as a young Black woman, I stand before you not just as a representative of the NYDA, and more importantly, but rather as a young woman who understands what it means to navigate adolescence in a world that often sees you as vulnerable before it sees you as valuable. So this is not just a professional matter. It is deeply personal because the girls we speak about today are our sisters, our classmates, our cousins, our peers and children. Some of them perhaps are even versions of who we once were. We gather here not in abstract concern, but in a direct response to a crisis that has already disrupted the futures of far too many young girls in our country. The statistics are not just alarming, they are harrowing. Recent reports reveal that the National Department of Health confirmed 122,000 girls aged 10 to 19 years gave birth between April 2023 and March 2024. That's nearly 335 teenage births per day. This was not merely a public health crisis, it is a national emergency rooted in deep socioeconomic fault lines and systemic failures. It is an indictment of our inability as a collective to fully protect the bodies, the rights and dreams of girls, especially from poor, rural, and marginalized communities, especially those who are differently abled. Now we know that teenage pregnancy is not a standalone issue. It is deeply interwoven with child sexual abuse, gender-based violence, educational exclusion, toxic gender norms, substance abuse, and the predatory dynamics of poverty. So behind these statistics lie unspeakable truths. 10-year-olds becoming mothers, 10-year-olds becoming survivors of statutory rape, forced to navigate motherhood while their abusers roam free. 10-year-olds being in classrooms, or rather not being able to be afforded the opportunity to learn. Futures cut short, and young girls pushed deeper into cycles of poverty, stigma, and exclusion. We cannot tiptoe around these truths. Teenage pregnancy is not just about health, it is about injustice. It is about gender inequality, poverty, exploitation, broken family systems, absent accountability, and a dangerous silence that protects predators more than it protects girls. And until we confront these intersecting issues head-on with honesty, with bravery, and unflinching determination, we will continue to fail young women of this nation. This is not a moment of blame, it is a moment of bold alignment. Earlier this year, at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York, the global consensus was clear. Countries that are demonstrating positive green shoots in the fight against teenage pregnancy are those that invest early, legislate boldly, and collaborate. From Namibia's one-stop youth centers to Brazil's conditional cash transfers for school-going mothers, and Nordic countries' curriculum on consent and healthy relationships, one thing stands out. Prevention is not a slogan. It is a strategy, a policy, and funding. South Africa has the policies. We have the frameworks. What we need now is unapologetic implementation across every level of society. Now, as the NYDA, we stand ready to deepen our collaboration with government departments, community stakeholders, and international partners. We call for increased investment in early prevention, protection services, and reintegration programs that restore hope, not just punishment, and compounds trauma. Let this not be just another breakfast engagement. Let this be the turning point. Let this be the moment where we say and mean that no 10-year-old should ever carry a child, that no teenage girl should be punished for what was done to her, and that no community should normalize silence in the face of violence. The NYDA pledges its full support to this effort, and we urge every partner in this room to match this urgency with action. I thank you.
Thank you very much, NYDA. Colleagues, just to continue with our acknowledgements, the acting DG of GCIS, who has provided us the venue, was here with us this morning, so she's in and out. So we thank her for providing us with a space to have this conversation. We acknowledge in our presence the CEO of SAF8. We acknowledge in our presence the founder of the Dr. Bokgopane Zulu Foundation. We acknowledge in our presence the executive director of SRHR Africa Trust, which we know as SAT. As we continue with our key messages from the departments, I am now going to call upon the Deputy Minister of the Department of Environmental, Forestry and Fisheries, Honorable Ms. B. Swartz, to join us in the podium to give her message of support. Over to you, DM.
Thank you, Program Director, Deputy Minister Steve Letsike, all Deputy Ministers online in absentia, our former Deputy Minister, Dr. Henrietta Zulu Bokgopane, Acting DG of GCIS, Chairperson of the NYDA, representatives of SANEC, UNAIDS, and all representatives of all different organizations and NGOs that are here this morning, and all our participants, who are 180 participants who are online, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I think that all the people who are gathered in this room under one roof this morning are all the think tankers around the topic that we're talking about today. And it is not the first time that people are gathered under one roof talking about this today. And I think that we have had people having sleepless nights, collecting data, putting policies together, attending conferences, attending workshops, all in the name of teenage pregnancy. Now, I'm not going to repeat stats and numbers this morning, because when we talk about teenage pregnancy, we are talking about warm bodies, we are talking about human and especially young women in this instance. Now, I'm going to say to you this morning that we are not going to win this battle without moral regeneration. We can put all the English together, we can put all the stats together, but unless society and families come together and we bring moral regeneration into this talk, we are going to not win this fight, we are not going to win this war against teenage pregnancy. Now, in South Africa, when you go into the rural areas, we are still finding families who want to protect a perpetrator against a 10-year-old and say that they want to talk it out, they want to be compensated for what has been done to a young girl. Now, until we also arrest parents who allow their young girls to say that when they are pregnant, they allow the family of the boy or the perpetrator to come and ask for forgiveness and give them a cow and give them money. We are not going anywhere. Now, in our department, we deal with climate change. Now, I want to say to you this morning that we have got Dr. Koviada at Wits University, who all pediatricians have come together, and they've done scientific research that now there is a problem that climate change will affect unborn children. And climate change is also going to affect young children who are born. Now, I think that we've got a very small government And each year we are keep on saying that because of cost containment, we are cutting budget. Now I'm very scared. I told the Dr. Koviada that I'm very scared. I don't know what the unborn child is going to be affected by climate change, what type of disease the child will have. But it's also going to be very heavy on our government again. That we are going to have young kids who are going to be, who are unborn and who are going to be born with a disease that is going to be caused by climate change. Now there's a whole paper. I can share it with all the different representatives, with SANEC, with UNAIDS, so that you see the research that is being done, and it's being led by South Africa. But there are pediatricians throughout the world who are part of it. Now, I'm saying, DM Letsike, that at the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, we are having relationships with schools because we are wanting young people in the schools to take careers in line with what we do at the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. Now, when we keep on seeing young women dropping out of school, we are seeing scientists and mathematicians not being in the space in South Africa. And we are seeing ourselves having to go and ask people who want to go on pension, begging them, please don't go on pension because we are going to lose the skill, because we are going to have nobody to take the baton over, because we are not going to have young girls in the space. And in fact, in South Africa, we are disadvantaged because all our maths and science pupils go overseas because they get recruited, because we do not have the citizenship that young people must work for government, because we don't understand in South Africa how important government is and for people to work for government. Instead, we pay for people for their bursaries. After 2 years, they decide to go overseas because of money that we do not have in the country. Now, coming back to this topic, if everybody in society does not come on board, the mothers, the fathers, the uncles, the aunts, the grandmothers who live with the teenagers, the societies we have should come on board. Now, I am saying, I'm challenging everybody, including you, Deputy Minister Letsike, that I want to one day see all of us saying that we are marching to the presidency and we are marching to say that teenage pregnancy must be deemed a state of emergency. Because if we don't, we are going to end up in the boardrooms, we are going to end up in this room talking. And look, this is your job. You eat, sleep, and breathe what it is that is going to prevent teenage pregnancy. But you alone that do the research, that do the policies, is not going to win this battle. Because me as a parent, I must be on board. I must understand what you are saying. The women in the rural areas who cannot read and write, who don't understand what we are saying here because we have not translated it in Siswati, in Tsonga, in Sikosa, that woman will never understand what you are saying because you talk it in English. But we need to go down there and talk simplified language to communities. That when a 10-year-old child gives birth, this is what happens to their body. When a 10-year-old child gives birth, this is what happens to their mental health. Because I don't understand also what we mean by a 16-year-old consenting and then legally the perpetrator cannot be charged for that. And our laws are very loose. People in the streets talk about it and say that I would rather be in jail because I'm going to get a meal, I'm going to get free education, I'm going to get everything. So when he comes out, that perpetrator, in 2 days' time, he does the same thing because there at Leeuwkop, at Sun City, they're going to get a free meal. In the name of who? Young women, young teenagers. So I think that this fight should be intensified. We can't keep on saying we are waiting for the next United Nations conference to go and talk English again. I'm from there. I spoke very well English on behalf of South Africa. But when I came back, I knew that I'm just recorded there and I was talking about land degradation and desertification, which has got an impact on how we grow food in our country. Now, I know I spoke there and Brazil was talking how they provide food in the schools, and I was also talking how we do the feeding scheme. That is English. The bottom part is that how are we going to implement? So the next invite that I need as I conclude, Deputy Minister Letsike and everybody in this room, is that how are we going to implement this so that the numbers of teenage pregnancy go down, but not go down. We must not have it. When I was in school, we knew that if you become pregnant, you are out of school. There's no more going back to school. And in our days, I can only mention one young woman, may her soul rest in peace, but when she passed away, she was already an adult. She became pregnant, she was kicked out of school. But her parents fought for her, took her to schools in another format. By the time she died, she was a professional nurse. She had a bigger degree. But whenever we used to meet, she used to say, yeah, I was the only outstanding person throughout our schooling life, and it was a mistake. But today we have got boarding schools for pregnant young girls, a boarding school for pregnant young women. That is how far we have gone with human rights, with the Constitution, with everything else. Because I'm telling you, when we go to parents, they're going to tell you we are scared of our kids. They're going to tell you, I'm scared my daughter will stab me if I stop her from going out of the door at night. You are going to hear horror stories. And we should review what we are saying about South Africans, about children's rights, about human rights, about constitutional rights. Because teenage pregnancy will never end if these things are not part and parcel of us discussing teenage pregnancy. So we must take everything head on. Even the policies we have, are they still relevant today? When were these policies done? Are they relevant to what we are talking about today? To fight teenage pregnancy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM, for your key message of support. Colleagues, we move with our agenda. We're going now to the keynote address from our Honorable Deputy Minister Letsike from the Department of Women, Youth and People and Persons with Disabilities. She doesn't need any introduction. I think we all know her from the streets of advocacy, from the streets of fighting for human rights, affectionately known as Comrade Steve. So we will still continue calling her Comrade Steve now that she's a Deputy Minister. She's my former boss, so I have to be nice to her. She might employ me again. May I ask the room to rise as we welcome the Deputy Minister on the podium to give us a keynote address. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Program Director. Ms. Xoxeka Nokoduka. Let me also bid appreciation to Deputy Minister Bernice Swartz, who's responsible for forestry, fisheries, and the environment. Thank you, DM. We do have other deputy ministers who joined us virtually. As you would have heard, we've got budget votes, debates taking place, so they are required to be in Cape Town. But we want to have also an appreciation of messages of support from deputy ministers of SAPS, deputy minister in the presidency, as well as Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Let me appreciate former Deputy Minister Dr. Henrietta Bogopane Zulu, who's also a patron of the Henrietta Bogopane Zulu Foundation. We appreciate you coming today. The Acting Director General of GCIS, as well as our Deputy Director General, Balingting, the CEO of SANEC, Dr. Kulu, the chairperson of NYDA, Mayor Sanda, and I want to also appreciate the newly appointed Mr. Kubeka, who's the CEO of National Youth Development Agency. We look forward to working with you and do enjoy your period of working with NYDA in this tenure. Let me appreciate the United Nations family that is represented here. We do have representative from WHO. We have a representative from UNAIDS, who also, all of them as UN family anchors the work that we do daily. We do have representative from UNICEF, as well as UNFPA in the room. I want to also appreciate UN Women, which is also represented here. My sisters and brothers from UN family continue to anchor and support our country, representing United Nations. Leaders of civil society organizations and sectors, the private sector that is also here, stakeholders from across various social formations join us in person as well as virtual. The office of the chairperson of the House of Traditional Leaders and Kwesen leaders is represented as well. I want to appreciate Chapter 9 institutions, CGE, together with the South African Human Rights Commission and CRL that have joined this session. I want to just isolate Professor Zozo Nene, who unfortunately lost her mother yesterday, but she joined us online. But she's with a team, of course, of medical doctors. They are coming from the College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists with the University of Pretoria. These are medical doctors that goes around across the country, working with various institutions, working with teenagers on both levels of prevention, but also responding to their health needs. And with us, we do have our Miss Teen South Africa, who's seated right there at the back, who's just going to also be one of the ambassadors for this program. We want to congratulate you as well for taking the crown after our crowned Miss Teen was crowned Miss Teen Universe. So we do welcome the teenagers who passionately will also champion their own agenda with that. Distinguished guests, let me also appreciate those who are online. We have now Deputy Minister Swartz. We have over 250 people who joins us online. Initially, when we planned this gathering, we only planned it for just about 40, 50 people, both virtually as well as in person. But we have since had a demand. And a demand, this is representatives. This is not just lay people. These are captains of industry, both private, civil, as well as government, who says we want to be part of what we are embarking on from today. And let me also appreciate the members of the media who joins us today for this work. I must express this day as an appreciation that is focusing on both child and teenage pregnancy. This is not just a health issue, it's a social and economic issue that, of course, Mayor Eva Kewanga spoke about the economic consequences and the cost of not addressing child and teenage pregnancy. This requires all of us as a nation to consider our own moral fiber and consider the future prosperity of a girl child and what we do now and what we do for their future. we are, with everybody in this room, a whole of society that is needed. And this whole of society is needed for what we have called, under this 7th administration, waging war against child and teenage pregnancy. We are doing this not as a start, but we are upscaling efforts of our previous administration. It has been done before, that we came together, we have responded, we have put laws, programs, policies that responds to the scourge. I stand before you charged with urgency and a sense of activism, because the facts demands nothing less. As we continue to do this work, we cannot look at it as business as usual. Colleagues, we are here to wage a war. And this war has been integrated in our midterm development plan under the 7th administration. When we took office, I did highlight that the 6th, 5th, and 4th administration played a significant role, and we've seen the results. Indeed, when we look at the statistics, we were getting it right. COVID disrupted us. It has taken us back. And this is not acceptable, that now, even in our own communities, our own homes, our own schools, we've accepted the conditions. I want to say, we are not here just to talk. And we will not march. We will not march as government. We are a government that will act. But acting will require all of us, with civil society, with development partners, with communities, with organized civil society, to act together. It means that whatever we do, we must implement the policies of our country, implement the laws and the programs, and we must never fail young people. If we come back a few years or right at the end of this term, and we are still at the same level of statistics, it means all of us would have failed, and we would have failed the young people. So the accountability that we want to see from government is the same accountability we want to see from all stakeholders, including parents and caregivers. Everybody must be responsible. Our constitution prescribes that. Our laws prescribes that we take the interest of a child as a priority. Now, the urgency of teenage pregnancy and child pregnancy, the statistics have been alluded. Just 2024 alone, over 90,000 pregnancies were recorded amongst girls aged 10 to 19. And 2,328 pregnancies were girls between the ages of 10 to 14. This is not just alarming, because when we say alarming, it will be an understatement. These are our children. Some barely are teens. Some are not even teenagers. And we are now forcing them into motherhood. That's unacceptable. A child that's 10 years becoming pregnant is not just a statistic, but it's evidence of a profound societal failure, and in most cases, a horrific crime, since a girl that is young cannot legally give consent. This crisis threatens the very foundation of our social and economic development. It poses a threat to health, to rights, to education, and to socio-economic well-being of girls. When a young girl becomes a mother, her chances of finishing school plummets. Indeed, we have progressed. We are saying as a country, and we've said it, should it happen that a girl child gets pregnant, they must go back to school because prospects of them thriving relies on access to education. Our Minister Chikunga, recently highlighted that teenage pregnancy perpetuates also the poverty cycle, especially amongst disadvantaged young girls, creating a long-term challenge for families and society at large. We recognize that beyond just the social and economy, the public health issue, it becomes an emergency for young girls. The high incidence of adolescent pregnancy in our country is interlinked to the scourge of HIV and other STI infections. We know SANEC has done incredible work through the multi-sectoral initiative. I had the opportunity and the privilege of leading the South African National AIDS Council together with Deputy President for many years. We have done this. We have responded. We have reduced HIV infections and incidents in our country. We have reduced STIs, but now I'm worried because it's increasing amongst chlamydia, gonorrhea. These are worrying us, which means that when HIV infections and STIs goes high, it also speaks to the level of pregnancies, which some are unplanned pregnancies. We must also, as the Deputy Minister Bushielo has highlighted, we are not going to shy away to deal with the level of statutory rape. We must confront it. And we want to applaud various leaders who have taken this responsibility to act, but a whole of society is required. Reporting is the first point of dealing with statutory rape. It's not going to just be a burden on the girl child that she must report statutory rape. The parents, caregivers must report statutory rape. And when children present themselves in clinics, the healthcare providers must report statutory rape and assign social workers to support these young children and teenagers and young mothers for that matter. I'm raising all of this because rape is a crisis in our country. Gender-based violence is a crisis. Our President Ramaphosa, has declared this as a second pandemic after COVID. We must treat it as such, including treating statutory rape, that we deal with it and ensure that necessary support is in place. The issue of poverty, we cannot continue to put a blind eye that South Africa is facing a crisis of poverty. The issues of unemployment and the economy that is growing in a snail pace. For us to change the trajectory of young people, we must pay attention on economy. And we must pay attention on what we do to end poverty. It's embedded in our National Development Plan. It's also embedded into what we have signed in as a global community, which is Sustainable Development Goal, to address poverty and ensure that there's food security for our people. Something that we must also confront, which Minister of Health speaks passionately about, is the issue of substance use and abuse. We cannot continue to deal with issues as silos, leaving out the attention on substance use and abuse, leaving out paying attention on mental health and well-being of people. These issues we must confront and we must never run away from. I want to highlight something that was proven by UNESCO, which is scientifically proven that a country like ours, like all other 21 countries, signed into what we call leading comprehensive sexuality education. I'm singling this out and I'm highlighting it because it remains important. We will not accept teachers putting aside the implementation of a curriculum that implements comprehensive sexuality education. This is scientifically proven to allow the development of a young person, of a child, with age-appropriate education so that they can make informed decisions, including being able to say no and taking bodily autonomy and consent about their bodies. We will not relegate what has been proven, whether in curriculum or in our laws, aside. We're going to pay closer attention to all this information that is collected daily by civil society, by our government, to saying this will work and it must work. So we want to say this to teachers. We know your valuable work. You must implement these programs. We will engage with school governing bodies. We will engage with parents and educate parents of the importance of what curriculum has been proven. The most important curriculum cannot only just be mathematics and accounting. The development of a child relies to what age-appropriate information is shared with them to make informed decisions. That is part of development, the same way we prioritize mathematics, the same way we prioritize history, the same way we prioritize economics or accounting or business management is the same way we will prioritize life orientation. I want to say, colleagues, it is important that we understand that the causes of child and teenage pregnancies requires that we just don't speak and put programs together, but we craft solutions that work, solutions that brings results. We are watching statistics. I was saying it already to Dr. Nkensani, that we are also going to build in that evidence-based strategic information, live data that informs us what is happening on a daily basis across our country. We've done so where we have live data that tells us about levels of incidence in HIV, but it's the live data we want to see now that relates to teenage and child pregnancies and how we can handle that. So crafting those solutions is important. The police are charged with the responsibility to arrest perpetrators of violence. When a child is raped, the perpetrator must be arrested and must be convicted. It is why we rally, calling all ministries, and as you have seen, deputy ministers, which is in my level, we are charging all deputy ministers with the responsibility to saying, join this call, ensure that your ministry is implementing its responsibility. The South Africans called for a political will. It's not for us to just listen. It's for us to act. And we will be providing through deputy ministers, we will be providing with that leadership. It will be noted because they participate in the South African National AIDS Council that is chaired by Deputy President. The reports will be submitted accordingly. We spoke to Minister of Public Service and Administration who revealed data. And I'm not going to hide this information because it's important. There are teachers who are suspended in our country because of sexual offense. President has said why are we compensating these teachers? Because when you are suspended until proven guilty, you still continue to be earning your salary. We are going to put an end to that. We saw a case that went into court just recently in Mpumalanga. This case of a teacher who has been stricken off from the educator's role for sexually assaulting and impregnating a learner. They are charged, even worse, with a maintenance court as well. All these cases that Department of Justice and NPA has, we're going to be paying attention on them. We are not going to just allow the burden to only sit with teenagers, young mothers, or women, for that matter. It's unacceptable that we don't deal with this. But colleagues, I want to say, peer pressure, inadequate knowledge, and contraceptive gaps. Not all teenage pregnancies result from coercion. I want to highlight this, and I think our MC was trying to make this point. Not all teenage pregnancies are as a result from coercion. Many occur because adolescents lack knowledge and means to prevent them. Limited access to sexual and reproductive health services, inadequate sexuality education, and low contraceptive use contribute significantly. The cultural taboos around discussing sex means many teens are uninformed about contraception and protected sex. In some areas, clinics are not youth-friendly. We know youth zones have been set up by the Department of Health together with civil society organizations. Many incredible work done by organizations have set up the youth-friendly zones, addressing the adolescent girls that must access proper and affirmative health services, seeking contraceptives. Townships in the urban areas where young girls can access contraceptives and programs that respond to their needs. Additionally, many girls are in relationships lightly with older boyfriends and becoming pregnant due to combination of ignorance, pressure, and insufficient guidance. We also saw this with younger girls who are in tertiary around transactional sex, and we never must pay a lip service. We must address the transactional sex. The statistics that were released, even by many partners, revealed that there's high transactional sex taking place. A man with money, whether they are buying bread, airtime, or a cold drink, or whatever that people drink in their time of leisure, what is cocktails, it should not result to a sexual exchange. Our children, their bodies, young women's bodies, are not in exchange of money. This must be stopped. Let any sexual activity be a matter of consent amongst those who are able to consent. Anything below that is unacceptable, and we must act accordingly. So I'm going to say to all of you, we call on all stakeholders, as we've seen, all stakeholders that are here. You are here because you've got work that you've been doing, you've got research. Civil society has been doing advocacy. We are saying that this 7th administration has heard you. We call on men, women in their diversity in this country. We call on traditional leaders, faith leaders, join this war to deal with child and teenage pregnancy. Our United Nations Family and Developmental Organization, you have joined in this struggle. Don't get tired. South Africa still continues to need you. Here in South Africa, in SADC, in Africa, and the rest of the world. This is just a soft launch of saying that when we wage a war, we do it together. We are not going to do it just as government. We are going to do it together. We will listen today into these recent research models, but the next steps that will be provided will already tell us who's going to do what and when. How often are we going to be meeting to look at progress, not to look at complaints? When we meet, we're going to look at progress on what we have done. And I want to also say, the issue of civil society will not just end with just advocacy. Your eyes, your ears, and the work that you do must be supported. We know that we are facing financial crisis. We are ready to meet with various departments that continue to support civil society. We need more of domestic funding. We must put more of our domestic resources than to rely on aid. We saw what has recently happened with PEPFAR. Any government, any state can take away their money. It's their money. It's not ours. We are not entitled to it. What we are entitled to is putting our own resources to where it matters, domestic resources. And part of it, it's also about the role of private sector. And this is a clarion call to all private institutions that are beneficiaries of any development in our country. Don't wait for when young people, both women and men and non-binary, to be older, to only invest in them. Invest in them when they are children so that we can actually have a much more productive outcome out of our economy. So I really want to thank everybody that's here and say this day be marked as the beginning of an end to child and teenage pregnancy crisis in South Africa. We have a roadmap that DDG will share. We have a will as political leaders, as stakeholders. Now we have a collective platform that will bring all of us together to protect our future and the future of our children. Together, when we wage this war, we will win against child and teenage pregnancy so that every South African child can enjoy a childhood free of abuse and full of opportunity and potential. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Minister for that keynote address, framing for us where to from here. So colleagues, we are running out of time. We are running behind time. So my next speakers are in trouble. I don't even think I'm going to sit down. I think the Deputy Minister touched or summarized this conversation around us understanding what is the task and where do we go from here. And for us to be able to do that, we need to look back and look at the status quo. What has been done? Where are we? What are the recommendations based on the work that is done? So I'm going to take 3 presentations that are going to frame for us where we need to go. So my first presenter, Ms. Desiree Jason from the Department of Social Development, is going to give us a presentation on diagnostic evaluation of government's response to teenage pregnancy in South Africa. Over to you, Desiree. Can we please welcome Desiree to the stage?
the diagnosis, the second one would, yeah, that one would encourse. No, not that one. The third, label, that one. Encourse.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Program Director. And good morning, Honorable Deputy Minister and the former Deputy Minister of Social Development. I will be presenting on the diagnostic evaluation. As from the Department of Social Development, we wanted to understand what is government's response to the issues around adolescent pregnancy or teenage pregnancy. The report, in terms of the full report and the executive report, is on the website of DSD. The study was completed and signed off in this year of March. Teenage pregnancy is a social and a public issue, which is a global issue, and it has implications on the health and well-being and future prospects of teenage adolescent mothers and their children. It's a very complex issue that requires coordinated interventions from government as well as non-profit organizations. We do have various policies and frameworks that we have implemented in terms of government and especially within the social sector. That is the Department of Social Development, Basic Education, and the Department of Health. The programs within the next slide, thanks. The programs or interventions within DSD is that there is a number of prevention and early intervention programs such as RISIA, which is a community-based intervention, and we also offer psychosocial services. The social behavioral programs, for example, YOLO, You Only Live Once, and CHOMI, which looks at how do we address and ensure that especially adolescents engage less in risky behaviors. And these interventions are targeted for ages 10 to 24. We also, as a country, we do have government-wide frameworks, such as the Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Framework, which we are currently also going to review as DSD. The purpose of the study and some of the key evaluation questions was that we wanted to understand and assess the relevance as well as the responses of government's interventions in addressing adolescent or teenage pregnancy, focusing on the policies, programs, and service delivery gaps at a national and a provincial level. So the questions that we asked and the findings I will also share was around what are the prevalences, what's the trends, how are the NPOs assisting government in terms of rolling out some of these programs and services. And also we wanted to learn what can we learn from other countries. The study methodology, the next slide, thanks. The study methodology, we utilized a number of data sources. We also looked at the district health information system. We looked at health surveillance tools such as the Tembisa and the Naomi models. We also conducted key informant interviews, which was within the Department of Social Development, Health, DBE, also our colleagues at Department of Women, Youth and with Persons with Disabilities, NYDA, a number of NPOs, developmental partners such as UNICEF and UNFPA. The findings that came out of related to policy implications was that teenage pregnancy also, as the DM has said, It impacts negatively on the health and the education, as well as the social outcomes of these adolescent mothers. And we do know, as a country, we have a number of very good policies and programs and frameworks. Some of these frameworks, such as the Children's Act, the Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Framework, and we also have learner pregnancy programs or policies from DBE. We also know that the findings said that there is uneven implementation, especially looking at your provincial level, municipalities, and within rural areas. There is fragmented responses from DSD, Department of Health, and DBE, which reduces the impact of these policies and programs. There is also a need for much integrated adolescent-centered service delivery models. There is weak and non-integrated data systems, and the DM also spoke to that hinders real-time planning, and therefore we need to look at how do we then enhance some of these data systems. There's limited access to youth-friendly sexual reproductive health rights and services. There is a stigma when our young people go to healthcare settings or facilities. Then lastly, also regarded to the policy implications, is that the service delivery requires community education, reduced donor dependency, and increased domestic resource mobilization. In terms of the findings related to improving our policies, we need to institutionalize youth participation through advisory panels and civic engagement, as well as looking at the alignment with the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, that's the Bella Act. We also need to develop sustainable domestic financing to reduce the dependency on donors, and also how do we enhance support amongst our communities. The findings around the prevalence and the trends, we then saw the data was showing us that there is a high prevalence in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Limpopo and Mpumalanga. The lowest rates was in the Western Cape and Gauteng. We also looked at the age-specific fertility rates for girls between the ages of 15 to 19, and there is a decline from 66.1 to 44.6. We also then realized that the data was also showing us that there is a high prevalence of pregnancies among very young adolescents. The findings related to the service delivery gaps and implementation challenges, there is weak intersectoral coordination, there is donor dependency and under-resourced services, unequal deployment of social workers, limited youth engagements, and also an issue which our I think it was our UNICEF colleague who spoke to the issues of limited youth engagements. There's also gaps in comprehensive sexual education, and the rollout of contraceptives and access is also very limited, as well as the limitation around digital health tools. There's inadequate adolescent-friendly services, stigma in health facilities, inconsistent comprehensive sexual education implementation, as well as under-resourced psychosocial services. And one of the former speakers also spoke about the issues around mental awarenesses and services. We then looked at other countries that we could see how we compared our policies and interventions with. We looked at the US, we looked at Finland, Chile, Philippines, we looked at the eastern countries, and we looked within Africa. We looked at Kenya as well as Rwanda. And what we discovered was that they have an integrated service delivery approach. There is youth-centered services, there is friendly clinics with local primary health care services, there's mental health support, sexual education counseling, as well as parenting services. There's also the extended mobile outreach clinics, especially in rural communities, and institutionalized interministerial steering committees. And I think that's also what the DM is alluding to. The key recommendations, we looked at it at different areas. What does the recommendation say? Who will be responsible? What are the time frames? And what are some of the success factors? I would only take some of the key recommendations and the issues. In terms of the cross-cutting strategies, we need to enforce statutory rape laws, especially for girls between the ages of 10 to 14. And we need to look at what will those indicators look like. It will be the number of prosecutions as well as community awareness campaigns. In terms of prevalence, we focused on the birth registration with the Department of Home Affairs, and we noticed that there was late birth registration, especially with the ages of girls between 10 to 14 years. So there needs to be further engagements, especially with Department of Home Affairs. We also looked at what are the factors and the predictors. We looked at what are the social, cultural, and personal factors around the issues of adolescent pregnancies. And also what are some of the sector-specific areas that we should look at within the Department of Social Development, Health, Education. I am going to conclude because I can see that my program director is right behind me, is that we should enhance intersectoral planning, expanding youth-friendly services, strengthening of our data systems, and mobilizing domestic resources to reduce donor dependency, align our policies and programs, and then also strengthen and look at the linkages between school, communities, and clinics, and also foster adolescent participation, data-driven planning, and inclusive governance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, DSD, for that presentation. Apologies for putting pressure on you. Colleagues, we are going to make a plan of ensuring that we distribute these documents that have recommendations and guiding us to the future. Let me acknowledge, as we continue, some few people that are amongst us today. UNESCO is in the room as part of the UN family. UN Women is in the room as previously acknowledged by the Deputy Minister. And also online, we acknowledge the presence of the former Minister of the Department of Social Development, Mmapaseka. She's also joined this conversation, so we have her online. Our next presentation is going to be given us by Dr. Peter Baron, because Dr. Jorgen Pillay is traveling. So Dr. Baron will be here representing the presentation that we are going to receive from the Gates Foundation. And this presentation is looking on the status of teenage pregnancy in South Africa, and it's looking at the lens of the Department of Health in terms of number of deliveries that are recorded by the Department of Health. Dr. Baron is online. Peter, are you connected?
I'm connected. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Program Director and Deputy Minister and all distinguished guests. It gives me great pleasure to do this presentation. And the good news is I'm going to make up some time for you because I'm not going to take very long for this presentation, because a lot of what I'm going to say has already been said. Can I get next slide, please? So I'm going to give an overview of the numbers of teenage pregnancies over the last 7 years, put these numbers into perspective, and give a high-level overview of what is required to improve the situation, but much of that has already been alluded to by various presenters. I'm going to draw on two sources of data. Johan Pillay and myself wrote an article for the South African Medical Journal a couple of years ago, teenage births and pregnancies in South Africa, and also the Health Systems Trust annually present a district health barometer that contains a wealth of information. So my coach is rushing me along here even faster than I can go. So this slide just shows you the deliveries in the public sector from 2018 through to 2024. From 2017 through to 2021, there was an increase in teenage pregnancies. And you can see in 2021, there was 139,000 teenage pregnancies, of whom 3,900 were between the ages of 10 and 14. Over the last 2 years that we've got data for, 2023 and 2024, the good news is that there's been a drop in the total number of deliveries, as well as a drop in both overall teenagers, 10 to 19, but also a very significant drop in those between 10 and 14. We're not sure why this drop has occurred. Maybe post-COVID people are getting out more and not having so much sex, but we don't know the reasons for this drop, but it's very pleasing. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is getting a bit more complicated, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. Just to show you, these are the various provinces in the country. I'll just take the left-hand one, the Eastern Cape, to illustrate, and it shows you the number of deliveries per 1,000 girls aged 15 to 19. And year on year, between 2017 through to 2021, there was an increase in the proportion per 1,000. It was well over 50. Other rural provinces, KZN, Limpopo, Northern Cape and Mpumalanga, also showed an increase. And the more urban provinces, Gauteng and Western Cape, were fairly flat, but also significantly much lower rates than the rural provinces. And this has been alluded to by previous speakers. Just by comparison, so the average for South Africa was over 50 per 1,000 girls aged 15 to 19. In the USA, and we don't want to emulate that society, but they, from the period 1990 through to 2020, year on year there was a drop annually, and currently in 2020 it was about 16 per 1,000, so it's about more than 3 times less than South Africa overall. Next slide, please. Can move the next slide. Hello, Unati. Okay, thank you. So just to show you by province, in 2022-23, the delivery as a proportion of the total public sector deliveries, the average for South Africa was just below 14%, and it ranged from, in the Eastern Cape, 17.6% as a high, to Gauteng, 9.6 as a low. You can see the big divide between urban and rural provinces. Next slide. So, this is a similar kind of thing, just showing you disaggregated down to district level, and the top half of the graph shows the districts with the highest proportion of deliveries to adolescents and teenage girls. And you'll see that I'm not going to go through all the names, but they're almost all rural areas, whereas the districts with the lowest proportions of teenage pregnancy are all urban areas, metros, Joburg, Tshwane, Cape Town, etc. Next slide, please. So moving on to conclusions, and most of the speakers before me have made this point, that pregnancy in young adolescents aged 10 to 14 is de facto evidence of statutory rape. And just thinking about, everybody has been talking about this, going for prosecution, most of these girls will deliver in hospital because they would be classified as high-risk pregnancies. And it's easy enough for the nurse, the midwife on duty, to just, when they're recording these births, and each one is got a lot of information recorded, just to note the birth and to make a call to the local police station or to somebody to say that there's been a statutory rape resulting in a delivery and that the process can start there. It's easy enough to do. You don't need sophisticated information systems as the first point of this process. The second point is that in a country where gender-based violence is such a profile, each pregnancy should result in prosecution, but is for the most part ignored. And it highlights how much work is going to be required to remedy the situation. Some of the factors in predicting a teenage pregnancy, and this comes from African context, that there's sexual coercion and pressure from male partners, there's low or incorrect use of contraceptives, there's lack of communication and support from parents, low socioeconomic status, low income and lack of employment opportunities, low educational expectations, and school dropout. The Deputy Minister made all these points in his overview presentation. And my last slide is that teenage pregnancy is an important and real issue. It increased from 2017 to 2022, and it since then has decreased, although it's still a major problem. And it runs hand in hand, as other people have said, with HIV acquisition. So the things that can decrease teenage pregnancy will also decrease the incidence of HIV in young girls aged 15 to 19 especially. So the things that can be done to change this has already been said by most people. Age-appropriate, good quality health education and life skills in schools. We've got all these girls in schools, they're a captive audience. There's no good reason why this can't take place. More complex is tackling sexual and gender-based violence, but that's a national program led by the President. We need to see the results of this. More easily done is making modern contraception more available with easier access, especially in rural areas and in communities that are underserved. There should be digital access and community channels to improve access to information, support and services for teenagers. Most girls have got access to cell phones, or groups of girls have got access to cell phones. There's an easy way of communicating with them. And these factors are especially important in rural areas and underserved communities. And with that, I conclude my presentation and wish this meeting all the very best of success. And while I was waiting for my turn, I spoke to Jürgen Pillay, and we agreed that we must update our paper that we wrote, and hopefully we can do that in the next few months. Back to you, Program Director. Over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baron. I am now going to request a presentation from Ms. Shoki Shabalala, who is the DDG in the department, to update us on the country teenage pregnancy prevention response.
Thank you, Program Director and Deputy Minister. Kindly allow me to walk on protocol laid down already. My presentation is about institutionalizing a national response to teenage pregnancy. I'm going to request that we skip that slide It's all about outlining the presentation. And go to the next slide, understanding the crisis. This is a problem in South Africa which is critical, and it's a developmental concern that undermines the rights, the well-being, and future prospects of adolescent girls. It fuels cycles of poverty, school dropout, gender inequality, and poor health outcomes. Here we are indicating its magnitude, that it affects even mostly girls under 15, and the drivers have already been alluded to earlier on, so I will not talk to that for noting. Next slide, in the interest of time. The next slide is about exploring causality of unintended pregnancies, further explained. There are individual factors, socioeconomic factors, health system is being addressed, and the environment as well. The lack of education is another issue, academic and SRH, risky behavior with an element of curiosity, psychological issues, low self-esteem, in some instances substance abuse, socioeconomic factors, child marriages, sexual abuse or coercion, gender-based violence, cultural matters, economic vulnerability, household parental support, peer pressure. On health system, limited number of practitioners and facilities, poor healthcare workers' attitudes and behavior as reported by the participants that we've engaged, inadequate sexual and reproductive health, unskilled healthcare workers as alluded to in terms of issues like waiting time and lack of privacy have been raised, but in terms of the environment, conflicting policies between termination of pregnancy and Child Protection Act, inconsistent treatment of perpetrators of GBV of sexual abuse, as well as non-adherence to education and legislative policies. Next slide. The department is leading a coordinated and a whole of government and a whole of society response. In some instances we've met, but the key ones is that we met all relevant departments, and it was unanimously agreed that this department should lead the Teenage Pregnancies National Strategy. We had consultative engagements, extensive sessions convened with national and provincial departments, including CSOs, NGOs, UNFPA, and other UN agencies. But in terms of leadership, in a nutshell, two departments are going to co-lead on this one, which is the Department of Health as well as the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Next slide. These are some of the key milestones. The National Strategy Development is one of the key milestones. We've appointed a service provider. We're working in partnership with UNFPA, and this strategy is due by March 2026. There is a national Indaba planning that is underway to be convened in September 2025. It will bring together stakeholders to shape the strategy. In terms of governance, a steering committee comprising multi-departmental, interdepartments, UN agencies, and technical task teams are already in place. On integration, teenage pregnancy will become a standing agenda item for the Inter-Ministerial Committee that is about GBVF and substance abuse, but it will also be a standing agenda item for MINMECs, particularly the MINMEC, which is the Minister and MECs for the Department of Health, for Social Development, and DBE. So these are the two strategic, political, institutional mechanisms we would like to place this matter on their radar, high on the agenda, for them to monitor and coordinate, as we do the monitoring at our level as well. The roadmap outlines a multi-sectoral approach with targeted interventions. These are the thematic areas and who is responsible for that. Policy and coordination, it's DWIPD, which is the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Develop the national strategy on teenage pregnancies. Establish reporting protocols for first-line responders, your educators, your medical practitioners. Ensure ongoing implementation of existing policies. Integrate prevention into broader GBV plans. On prevention and empowerment, mostly led by DBE, supported by your social development and other departments, upscale comprehensive sexuality education and strengthen educator capacity, and expand parenting, family strengthening, programs as well as family preservation programs. In this instance, the institution called family is under attack, and we ought to come together and rally around the strengthening of families. We have a policy in this regard. It has to be translated into practice collectively. The other one is keeping girls in schools, led by DBE, provide incentives and support like bursaries, and identify and support the girls at risk of dropping out. The next thematic area, it's engaging boys and men. Those are the departments we've cited that are playing a key role. Implement programs addressing masculinity, consent, no is no, and responsibility. Normalize positive masculinities and challenge harmful practices such as early and forced marriages. Leveraging on media, both the department, GCIS, and the communicators of the supporting departments initiate media campaigns targeting adolescents to shift norms, provide quarterly updates to media houses on progress. This will be led by the Deputy Minister, supported by the relevant Deputy Ministers. Youth-friendly health services, led by Department of Health, expand access to contraception, emergency contraception, legal abortion, post-exposure prophylaxis and counseling, address stigma at clinics through healthcare worker training. Some of the proposed interventions in the roadmap relates to care and support as well as community mobilization, strengthen services for pregnant teens and prevent repeat pregnancies, link teen mothers to schooling alternatives, your re-entry programs, and psychosocial economic support, including facilitating maintenance. It is important that we begin to even translate Pillar 5 of the National Strategic Plan that purports for maintenance in support of those children. On community mobilization, work with traditional and religious leaders to challenge harmful norms, to establish community dialogues, and to strengthen stakeholder participation and partnerships, particularly with stakeholders that are here today, some of which it's your SANAC, and to address the interlinkages of the NSP on GBVF and the NSP on HIV and AIDS. On monitoring and evaluation, this slide is very key. This matter is already in the MTDP of government, the Medium-Term Development Program of government. It clearly commits us to a target of reducing teenage pregnancy by 30% by 2030 through coordinated multi-sectoral interventions. We have no choice. The indicator, the outcome indicator is clearly stipulated and the baseline is there, but the challenge is our midterm target is to reduce it by 15%. And the end term target is 30%. So we have a lot of things to do and a huge task ahead of us. On M&E activities, we need to set clear targets at district and provincial levels once we begin implementing this until we have a strategy. We need to conduct annual reviews of teenage pregnancy rates and interventions, but we also need to utilize feedback to improve programs, particularly working with young people. It is often said the best evaluator of the service is the person who is using the service. In this instance, the young people are the ones that will inform the evaluation of this of our programs. Enablers here are sustained political will. We can see our principals are already driving this. Adequate funding. Where we don't have funding, we will reach out and seek for assistance, noting that donor funding has shrunk. Private sector partnerships to be encouraged, to be unlocked, and meaningful youth participation is critical. In terms of our milestone on the work that we are doing on the strategy, point 1, investment case findings. Summary shared with stakeholders showing the economic and social cost of adolescent pregnancy. Infographic is in development. Literature review currently being conducted. Consultant engaged to review past and ongoing efforts, and findings will inform a coherent national strategy. Strategic task force team coordinated by this department, facilitating alignment across government, civil society, and partners, focus on avoiding duplication and driving collaboration action. Roadmap for strategy, A draft roadmap has been completed. It details the phases and the responsibilities and timelines. I'll just give a synopsis on the next slide. National Indaba is underway. Knowledge Management Central Teenage Pregnancy Information Portal. Now, this is the timeline overview. It gives you clear timelines on what will be happening when. August, evidence mapping and situational analysis. September, round 1 stakeholder consultation. November, zero draft strategy developed. January, round 2 consultations. February, finalization, strategy costing and implementation plan, and it's going to be tabled to cabinet. Way forward, roadmap, I've alluded to. Teenage pregnancy is applied. That will be on the agenda of the IMC and the one of the MINMEC. Prevention programs, I've alluded to those. Protocols on handling teenage pregnancies are key. Access of data about the affected girl learners be availed to social workers so that we are reaching to them, we engage them, we interview them, we even establish what happened. If there is a need to follow through on prosecutorial matters, then we certainly need to do that. DPSA to be lobbied with NPA to address the issue of maintenance in respect of the educators that are often dismissed and they ultimately walk away with their pensions. As a result, the duty to maintain the child rests with the state in the form of a child support grant. And this is the already burdened social security system that we are having. There is clear commitment addressing this matter. A roadmap here is about streamlining multi-sectoral approach and accountability, strengthening and revitalizing prevention, accessing data, addressing maintenance issues, and ensuring that all the girls that need our help are accessed. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sishoki, for that presentation that is giving us the roadmap. My last presentation on this segment, we are going to get it from the founder of the Dr. Bokgopane Zulu Foundation, the former Deputy Minister of the Department of Social Development, and to me, I call her Aus Ipi, and it's only me and her who knows where that comes from. Sorry, dear. Over to you. I still call her DM, so. Let's welcome her to the podium, colleagues.
Thank you, Kokego. Let me acknowledge all the deputy ministers that have been online and present. I'm not going to be very long, but I am still a politician, so let me also apologize. You know, we start with apology all the time because I came across the information when I already had my own commitments, so please do pardon me if you see me leaving. It's totally not meaning disrespect in any way. A lot have been said, but I still need, I love being the devil advocate, and it feels very well to do it when you are not in government, because I can say what I like, when I like, which were the small limits. But also thank you, DM, for the invitation. I only realized now with my foundation team, this is the first invitation since I left government. So I've never been to any event, so please, thanks. I never knew spending time with your pajamas all day feels so good without going anywhere. So thank you so much, DM. I'm going to, for those that have their nice phones, if we can go Girls Assembly, so that we can start there. That is what I would like to take us to. It was the 28th of August 2016 when we convened the very first Girls Assembly to give children or to give girls under the age of 18 an opportunity for them to speak. But all that we wanted and who was there, the condition was you must have been pregnant, must have been pregnant, you have delivered your baby, and the baby is there. So we had to set up a very massive. Now, when you go back, which you will read in detail in this assembly, one of the biggest challenges in the assembly were three things. The first one was, how do we intervene? We all know what the problem is. So analyzing it more than we already have is not going to assist us. But if you look at the statistics and all the research that is there, it tells you and it shows you, even when Jorgen and team developed this, it shows you that when South Africa was on level, thanks, TD. When South Africa was on level 5, lockdown level 5, that is where we found the highest, very highest increase. So there's two things that happened. At that point, nobody could blame the teacher at school. Nobody could blame the playground. We were all in the house with our children. But that is the time when 10 to 14-year-old figures went high, skyrocketing. What does it say to us as we design the implementation? We'll never be successful unless we incorporate the issue of incest in the interventions of child pregnancies. We'll never win this battle. But we also need to remember that the family restoration programs is what is also going to get us halfway to where we need to go. A lot of the girls end up having children because of us, as their mothers and as their fathers. And the comment goes like, the girl wakama next door ukokotaka lutu carrying the plastic checkers. Well, now what is your problem? So the child must now go and engage in that sexual behavior because the other one next door does it. So the family restoration in the fight against, I call it child pregnancies because I think teenage makes it a bit sexy. And sometimes the word just, so I never talk about teenage pregnancy, I talk about child pregnancies because we need to remind ourselves. As we also make this move, we also need to remember that the voices of children, it's non-negotiable. The participation of children should be a non-negotiable. Because it is only when we listen to children that we will actually understand how to intervene. In the Girls' Assembly, which I think that's what I would like to, as I get closer to, is the fact that, yes, the young mother spoke. I mean, at 13, she had 2 kids. Others were at 15, they had 3 kids. The population of Maretsane is 107,000 according to statistics. That is in Ratlo in Mafikeng. It's a village where we hosted this Girls' Assembly. But the information is in the many articles when you do Girls' Assembly. And one of the things that we had to do is that we say we keep girls in school, right? That was our first intervention. But you cannot keep girls in school unless you've got ECDs that are going to take the child from 10 days to be able for this girl before they become pregnant to go back to school. Yeah, I can see you next to me. So it's important that our ECD services are also looked at so that they provide the service. But we didn't stop there. We went further to make contraceptives available at the ECDs so that when she drops her child, she's on her way to school, she's able to also pick up her contraceptives. And that assisted a lot in the adherence. You're my program director. The other aspect is that we need to also understand that the intervention, Deputy Minister, when you deal with issues of children, it's also about how do we understand the war language. Now, I never subscribed to the war language, and I just wanted to say I still don't subscribe to the war on teenage pregnancy, because what I've learned, it was the war on drugs, the people that are affected, and the war turns to the drug user and not the drug. So maybe we should find another terminology which would encourage children. Let's also, as a collective here, to really also understand that there's only so much the girls can do. Our biggest focus, Deputy Minister, should also be on men. Myself and Deputy Minister Letsike, we call them mobile men mobile macho men with money. So you can never succeed in the intervention of pregnancies without actually dealing with men. And I want to add also to what the boy child. So when we designed Show Me That, which is my passion and my favorite program, when we conceptualized it while in government, we make sure even now it's one of the programs that my foundation still continues. And hence I can speak with confidence on issues of children because I spend a lot of my time. Let me conclude, Deputy Minister, by just saying the following things. One of the things that I know, and I'm handing over to you to hope that you will push it up with other deputy ministers. By the time I left, we had drafted the policy on the consolidation of the age, so that we don't have 16 being the consensual and then you've got 18, the definition of the child, because that is what makes the sexual offenses and the interpretation of the law a little bit. So you struggle with the statutory rape because we define a child at 18 and then, but they can have sex at 16 and they can go and work at 16. So one had drafted that policy and it's gone to cabinet. It just now needs to be finalized so that when we all agree, what is it when we talk about a child? Lastly, kuningi ish kuningi bakithi kuningi when all is said and done, what is needed now is action. So one of the things that I can stand is that I love getting it done. So let's go out there and get it done. We know what the problem is. We know how it's done. Let us go and do it. But we need out-of-the-box interventions. Let's deal with the men, name and shame. But also women are some belief. When our husbands decide to go and sleep with these girls, let's leave the girl out because women go beat up the girls. Beat up the one you have a contract with.
Thank you very much, my DM, founder of the foundation, that is going to be working very close with us in doing this work. So I think, colleagues, this presentation have given us a clear picture of where we are and gave us a sight of where we want to be. So we continue with the conversation. Now we are going to have a panel discussion where we are going to be engaging with communities to understand the challenges. I think we already understand the challenges and the impact of teenage pregnancy in our society. Therefore, we want to understand, or we want pledges from the communities. I'm a bit distracted to see Ms. Kiwongo from UNAIDS. I think she has another engagement. Eva, before you leave, may I request you to engage outside with the media? 3 minutes of your time as you are walking out. Thank you very much. May I request my panel members to come forward? This panel discussion is going to be facilitated by Dr. Ketsani Nkwashu from SANAC, the Executive Manager for NSP at the South African National AIDS Council. We have in our panel members that are representing adolescent girls and young women. We've got someone representing adolescent boys and young men. We've got a representative from the SANAC women's sector. We've got a representative from the SANAC traditional leadership. We have a sector leader from the faith-based sector. Ms. Nozuko, you have their names again. Who's not here?
I will need a mic to voice over for her if she is going to speak. She is deaf.
Okay.
I'll project.
You're gonna come here.
I'm saying I'll project.
Oh.
Speak loud.
You don't wanna come here. There's not gonna be anyone.
Can I have please Cindy Shankas?
Is she here? Did you say in the room?
Yes, she was coming. I don't know where is she. Cindy?
Cindy, are you in the room? Apologies, colleagues. When we stand here, we can't see you, so don't think we are being funny. The light is against us. So who else?
For disability.
Disability land. This is Wendy. The Indian lady.
Yes.
Yeah, the one.
Yes. And then the men's sector. From the men's sector, do we have anyone from the men's sector in the room?
Okay, let's work with what we have. Time is against us.
Faith-based. Faith-based.
Okay, so Dr. Mashu, you will manage your panel, and it's smaller, so it will go on. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. It's still morning. It's 5 to 12. Dr. has already introduced me. I'm Kesani Kwashu. I'm with SANAC. So as you know that today we are meeting because we've got a crisis in the country of teenage pregnancy. The fact that we've got a crisis, it means that there is something that we are doing that is not right. Because if you look at where we come from, when we were raised, I hope I'm not telling you my age, that teenage pregnancy was there, but it was not really a problem. As the other speaker have indicated, that you'll find that, you know what, in the school, you've got 3 or 4 people who are pregnant, and they'll only come back when you're writing exams. But now it's like it's a norm. So it means that you and I, we are failing somewhere somehow. It looks like our parents did it better than us. And when you listen outside, there is a blame game, you know, going all over. Others will be saying that because the government have taken over the children, it's theirs now, they've taken the power away from us, so the children are raising themselves. They are doing whatever they want, they are taking the drugs, you know, they are stealing, and they are also sleeping with each other, and at the same time sleeping with people who are older than them. And teachers are saying that they are in the schools only to teach. They are not there to police the children. And we are coming up with all these rules and regulations for them that now removed from them that social component that they used to provide. You remember in our times that when you were a problem at home, your mother or your father will go and say that I'm going to tell teacher so and so. Then you will be called in the staff room. So that is no longer there. It's no longer there at all. Now you call the child in the staff room, they'll tell you that you are not my mother, you are not my father. You can't tell me anything. So it's a serious problem that we have outside there, and we really need to correct this. And so this discussion is coming at the right time, where we are rushing to reach our 2030 agenda. And in that, it calls to a multi-sectoral, you know, responsibility that all of us, you know, parents, children, you know, educators, all professionals, that we need to work together. So we got a panel of, you know, our civil society who are leading the sectors that are on the ground, you know, 24 hours at the community level. So we're going to hear from them this morning. So since we've got 2 or 3 people who are not here, I'll also try to engage the audience so that we talk to each other, because we need to come up with a solution. we've got lots of strategies. And now it's high time that, you know what, as South Africa, we start coming up with the results from those strategies. We are no longer going to draw other new strategies, but now it's time to work and come up with the results. So we've got the panel that we've got. I'm going to quickly ask you that when I ask you a question, you introduce yourself, not even a minute, 30 seconds, you introduce yourself, and then you talk to us. So generally, the first questions that I'm going to ask you, it's only the three of you. This mic is restricting me. I can use this one. Oh, oh, it's recording. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm used to walking around when I talk to people. I hope you can still see me. Yeah, so let's talk. We've got a crisis here in the country. So my first question to all of you, I want to, just to get your view on this whole issue of teenage pregnancy. What do you think? What do you think is the problem that is causing all these alarming numbers, or all this problem that all of us, we are saying, that even caused us to even sit here in this place today and then meet and say, we've got a crisis. We've got a crisis of teenage pregnancy. And even when you look around in the room, you'll see that we don't really have a lot of men. Most of the people who are realizing that there is a problem is women. What is your view, ma'am?
Good morning, everyone. Bayete. My name is Princess Rachel Mlambo from Traditional Leaders Sector. I think first thing first, we've got the problem of job opportunities. That is where it starts, from the house, from at home itself. So, sometimes I can be soft, sometimes I can be loud.
Yes,
I will
be
try.
loud as much as you can.
I will try my best. So our main problem is the household itself. You'll be surprised, the teachers are so scared of our kids because they are so violent. You can't say no to those kids. So I think where we need to start, we need to go back home before we go to school. We need to prepare the parents. It's like the pandemic of the teenage pregnancy started from their mothers. They are from teenage pregnancy themselves. So I think we need to go back a bit, go back to the household, go back and see how can we assist those women. And I'm happy the minister is here and is making sure that she sees the problem. She sees where the problem is in her department where women are being assisted, disability, youth. So from where I'm coming from as a traditional leader, I'm working with the youth 24/7. I think the only part where I'm not getting part is where to visit the school. I don't have that allowance to visit the schools.
Yes, hold it there, we'll come back to that one. Okay. My sister, yes, Raisa, you can come in there.
Yes, I am Mrs. Mhlongo, I am a deaf lady. The biggest problem, or the biggest challenge rather, is access to information. Clinics don't have interpreters or a nurse who can sign. You find that a child at school, the teachers are afraid to teach on sexual health. There's limitation. So the biggest problem is access to information. And the claim is there aren't resources to provide that. We have all this information right now, but none of it is accessible in sign language. For Braille, there is some hope because some information are in Braille, but for sign language, it's such a cry. So you have so many young people who don't know that they're actually being abused. Some don't even know that if I do this act, it would lead to pregnancy. And then we want to cry and say teenage pregnancy. There isn't information. So lot of deaf people, or within the disability sector, there isn't empowerment in terms of access to information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. She pointed out the issues of lack of information. especially, you know, for the those who have disabilities. So we'll come back to that. In a minute, what is the problem? What do you think is the general problem that we have of the teenage pregnancy?
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. My name is Chiedza Chaguta. I'm with the Soul City Institute for Social Justice. And in our experience, it's one of the main challenges is the level and the stage at which we bring in interventions, you know, for young girls, for young women. And we find that from our experience in terms of the work that we've done over the last 30 years, but more specifically in the last 20 years through our Soul Buddies clubs, is that the intervention at the ages between 8 and 14 seems to really make a huge impact in terms of just, you know, giving young people life skills, in terms of delaying their sexual debut. And I think as we go on with the panel discussion, we'll talk more about the Soul Buddies clubs.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm coming back. I forgot to tell my panel that we are South Africans. So King George, we can throw him outside and speak our local language. So I'm going to ask you, Mums, as a traditional leader, that do you think that we have lost most of our, you know, most of the sort of the things that talk to us culturally, that builds us, you know, as South Africans? And what do you see the role of a traditional leader holistically in the fight, you know, on this fight for teenage pregnancy? I know that my former DM said that, no, she doesn't like this word of war, fight, and, yeah, and all this other stuff. But what do you think, you know, can help? Because we're fighting, we've got a crisis.
Thank you. Abobaba mkhulu bangangibulala mangaphumala ngakakhuluma ulimi lesintu. Ngiyabonga. I think emakhosini it has been a tradition and custom to look after our young boys and our young girls. It's a custom to us. We have izinto ezinjengengoma. Ingoma is whereby we take our boys for initiation. That is happening throughout every year in winter. We've got our young girls. Sinabo mama esibabiza abonomehlo. Labo mama labo ba monitora a young girl ukuthi akaka been engaged sexually so at that youngest age. That happens between the age of 13 to 19, where the problem is. After that year, they have to go to university. We are no longer looking after them. But Amakosi has got a tradition and custom sitting right well there. Even though sometimes sithi masil practice isiko lethu kuthiwe siyahlukumeza. But kahle kahle sinayo leyo data ukuthi siyazi ukuthi these 100 girls are safe from HIVs, diseases and everything. So in order to prevent yonke lento le esihlasele ngoba isesihlaselwe manje, it's a war. I'm sorry to bring back the war. It's a war. We need to go back emakhosini. We are still a custodian and the custom people abazi ukuthi what needs to be done. It's in our blood. We never went to school for it. Sikhula ngakho sikhule kanjalo ukuthi umntana wentombazana ufundiswa kanjani, umntana womfana ufundiswa kanjani. But asinayi access yokufika esikolweni because it's a choice. We can't like force abantu ukuthi abazoba phansi kwamakhosi sizobafundisa ama customs womuntu omnyama or womuntu wesifazana ukuthi usiphatha njani. It's not about sex as pair only. Ukuthi usiphatha kanjani as a young woman is very important. Around the boys, how do you carry yourself around the boys? How do you sit? Even to sit itself, you are being taught. Even the young boy as well, how do you respect your young sisters? Your neighbor is your sister, is not a girlfriend. That is how we are treating the situation emakhosini. So bestela thina ugovernment ukuthi asinike iroom to practice what we know. So that in that small scale esikhona ukuyenza ngaso sikwazi ukusecure the situation and have those few numbers secured.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So since I know I was supposed to have a couple of people, which means I've got 2 or 3 extra minutes, I'm just going to quickly ask from the audience. Anyone, you know, she spoke about the issues of culture, that, you know, now we need to allow all the Mmapaseka and to play their role. And even though if you look at the numbers, you saw there, it's Lipombo and also it's KZN. And those are the areas that are most rural. And we know that we've got traditional leaders in the villages, and I'm also a village girl, by the way. And I can first experience, I can even tell you, when I go there, those little cousins and what, bambinos, they are holding, you know, those little babies. So what I want to say is that, is there anyone who says, I agree with her, we need to go back to our culture? Anyone from the audience who can just, you know, second her to say that, no, indeed, we need to go back to our culture? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, you can. Yeah, you can come. I've got 2 people. 1 minute, 1 minute. You can start, my sister there and my sister at the back. A little bit louder.
So as surveys, we are currently implementing a program that is focusing on the community sexual education, but on the community level, where now we leaders as our rock and anchor, and also voice of action and also in the communities, plus teachers, plus women and men in the different communities, plus the different populations that we are having that consisting of adolescent girls and young women. What I can say is that it is not possible for us to conquer the issue and the stage of teenage pregnancy if we are going to look at it in our own individual corner. We need to come as comprehensive sectors in order to try and curb this. What our speaker said, she said, in our little corner as traditional leaders, we do have aspects where we can come in and consolidate 100 girls or 100 boys and teach them about ways of preventing themselves from this social ills and also social stage. So we believe that each and every contributing factor or issues that is coming from the different sectors can actually try to support the initiatives that are being taken by the different government departments in order to try and lessen the teenage pregnancy.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, the issue of involving community leaders, she supports it, that, you know what, we can't leave our Mmapaseka, we can't leave our Indunas, you know, alone. They should be the one who champion this at the community level. Yes, my sister there at the back. Yes, 1 minute. Mmapaseka, are we leaving them behind? Is Induna or what's happening?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mmapaseka. I agree with her 100%. I don't know if
yes,
is working with
yeah, persons that, yeah, move to the mic or push there, assist.
Greetings, everybody. Greetings, everyone. I'm Nkosazana Lerato Mapena. I come from the royal family Gamapena and Gamajosi as well. I 100% agree with Princess Rachel Ndambo. In society today, we have lost morality, and we don't preach that rights come with responsibilities. All these rights and policies are created, but they're not implemented in a way that supports Buti. When you've got the choice to do this, the consequences of what you're doing is this. Yes, the highest teenage pregnancies and the things are happening in rural communities because of poverty. Right, we can't leave traditional leaders behind because we're not bridging the gap between the two moralities of Western and our traditional customs. We've got a big problem whereby Deputy Minister Scourge said, Buti, in the villages, when a child is pregnant, it's allowed, Buti, the families sit down and talk together. Those things need to then come with the law to say, how do we encompass those two to say, hiding such a thing, though customs are practiced in that way, but how does it affect the children? We start praying in schools, we start reading the Bible in schools. All the customs and the ways of life go with what the Bible says. No sex before marriage. We don't preach abstinence. we don't preach religious values that would help our children to guide them to say, after the choices that you make, this is what should happen. Between the ages of your birth and 25 is the most time when you make the biggest decisions of your life that affects the rest of your future. And I think somebody also said, with all the people that fell pregnant during their youth, always said it was a mistake. How are we actively as people guiding the children to make sure that they make the right choices? So our customs and our tradition always find ways to protect Buti, such things don't happen. With the initiatives of the virgin girls and the maiden boys going to these schools where they are trained how to follow their practice and their customs. So let's find a way to bridge the two together to make sure they work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, let's clap hands for them. Let's clap hands for them. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm coming to
online. Online, but also ukuthi indaba ezithi sikhathele inhlawulo njalo. Sizani thina ngenhlawulo. Sikhathele iyona. We're very tired. It contributes a lot to teenage pregnancy.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. My sister from Soul City, when we have been talking, about teenage pregnancy, we can identify that there are all these social, mostly cultural issues, economic issues, a lot of issues that all it relates to say that, you can't look at one issue and then not these interlinkages. So how do you think that, as South African, we can move beyond this crisis that we have today? What is the way forward? How do we solve this problem?
So there's three things, from our perspective. The first one is that girls and young women certainly need to be at the center of whatever work that we do, because, in spite of many members of society being affected by teenage pregnancy, it is young women's and girls' lives that are limited and, constricted by teenage pregnancy. And so for us, it's really about implementing work that is proved, that has evidence and is shown to be effective. And for us, that's part of what's driving the work that we are doing across South Africa, implementing programs that we know, work for effect. And I'll speak to that as the third thing, the specificities of it. The second thing is that, behavior change is very important. We know that there's a number of biomedical interventions that are very good, and we've made strides in that regard. But it's actually very important for, attitudes to shift, because we might have access to all those medical services, but as long as young people's attitudes don't shift around, things like, their sexual debut, the facilities that they have, life skills, their perspective of the world, there's very little that will change until that shift happens. And the third thing, again, speaking to evidence-based work, is the work that we've done through our Rise Young Women's Clubs, our Feminist Learning and Activism Center, which is, a feminist political education and empowerment school. And lastly, our Soul Buddies Club, which I'll continue to press on. When we got to the 10-year mark in 2016 of implementing that program, we did an evaluation that actually showed us that 95% of young people who had been part of Soul Buddies clubs actually, attested to the fact that there was a positive impact in their life. They had leadership skills, which also meant in terms of just the power that they felt in terms of decision making was a lot more grounded. I think secondly, the issue that the sexual debut is delayed. When sexual debut is delayed, there's a number of implications around that. The first one is that, it has HIV and STI implications, means that, there's less likelihood of a young person, of a young woman, contracting HIV or an STI. The second thing is that, that work that we've done really complements, the comprehensive sexuality education that happens in schools. And so we've been partnering with a number of government departments, the Department of Health primarily, Department of Basic Education, and so there's a level of collaboration. And I think lastly, just to say that for us, it's really not, while we target and work with young women and girls, It's about how we get them and empower them to navigate, community, the communities in which they live in a safe way.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we are hearing this is what they are saying, that comprehensive sexuality is something that we should look on. I understand that we've got some of our of those who are attending with us, those who are online. For my colleagues who are online, I just want you to add a little bit, but I want you to touch on the issues of having seen that we are talking about KZN and Limpopo. And it does not mean that, in the other areas we don't have. We also saw that in the Eastern Cape, 2 or 3 of those districts, we have seen that they've got higher number of those teenage pregnancies. So meaning that there is something that we need to do in the rural areas. So when I identify you, touch something to say, what do you think we need to do? Do you think the strategies that you are coming up with, they are only targeted to those who are in urban settings, or to those who are in semi-urban settings, but they don't address really the people who are in the rural? So that is the question. I'm going to start with Tabisa, and then Tabisa will be followed by, I think it's Nicolene, and then Nicolene will be followed by, let me see, Smangel. Then we'll stop for them, then we'll come to the others. Tabisa, you are online. Tabiso. 1, 2, 3, Tabiso, we're moving. Next. Nicolene, you can come in. Are we able to?
They can unmute themselves.
Okay, can you unmute? On hold, Tabiso. Osman Yellow, can you come in?
Oh, I know what the issue is. I don't know where is our tech people, but we are not technology challenged. Where's the mic? Yeah. Oh.
We can hear you, but are you able to?
Yes. Technology. Yes, let's start with Tabiso. Tabiso, you can come in.
Thank you very much. My name is Tabiso.
Oh, sorry, there are 2 Tabiso. Let me start with Tabiso Mugwena. Tabiso Mugwena.
Okay, thank you very much. Tabiso Mugwena from Love Life. I really want to commend the effort in terms of this engagement and appreciate the involvement of stakeholders that are in here and the presentations that were made. I think I want to really acknowledge and also indicate the importance of the involvement of the family that has been stressed here, and also indicate that in as much as we might have had the best lessons that we learned in the past, and we need to incorporate them to today. But I think we equally need to be careful not to take even or encourage that which was not correct that was done in the past, and hope that the same acts that were done then can actually be of great help to us today. I think we have great interventions, amongst other things that the Letsike spoke about, is an issue of your adolescent and youth-friendly services that, in my view, in provinces such as your Eastern Cape, KZN, and Limpopo, also based on the population statistics in those provinces, these programs need to be greatly expanded, sufficiently funded, so that we may have sufficient implementation of interventions in those areas. We have had your youth zones that are currently being implemented in your primary health care facilities. And whilst we cannot directly, at the moment, for lack of research and data in that regard, attribute the numbers that we have seen that they are going down in terms of the teenage pregnancy. But clearly there is something that the country is doing correctly that attributes to the numbers going down. and we need to concentrate on these working interventions. Your UN agencies, your SANAC as well, has got quite a number of proposed mechanisms that are being used currently.
Okay, thank you very much, Tabiso. I'm sorry, not to cut you. Just we are running out of time. I want to give the other colleagues some time to say something. Thank you very much. You can also type there on the chat, you know, some of the, yes, we will really appreciate that. So to all the ones that are remaining, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, be brief. Nicolene, it's your turn.
Thank you. Mine, it is to say that I think there's a need of resuscitating Ubuntu as a philosophy that informs our thoughts, our speech, and our action. As long as we don't bring that into our primary level and teach that at school level, we would not be able to win this war, because what we are looking at is human behavior and character. Because if we can tackle that and have a holistic and pragmatic approach as to how do we then bring this into practice, because with Ubuntu now it has been turned to a random act of kindness or a philosophy that keeps us going, and yet it is more than that. It stands on 5 African truths, and those are the truths that we need to teach our children. We need to embed so that that's a philosophy that, so that they know when they say I am because you are, they know that I cannot be doing anything that will cause me harm or that will cause another person harm. It goes deeper than that, so that they'll be able to see their future with the eyes that I hear today from the past. So hence I'm saying we need a holistic and a pragmatic approach into dealing with this, and we should also not be looking away into the laws and the policies of the country that are crippling the parents and causing a void between the parent and the child. Those needs to be amended.
Thank you, Nicolene.
We don't have time, but those need to be amended. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Put the whole message on the chat. She mentioned something: the crippling of the parents. Do we have, strategies that have taken power away from the parents in such a way that the parents now are spectators of their children? Next one, Michael, you can come in. 1 minute. Oh, I think it was Tabiso. Yeah, it was another Tabiso. Yeah, another Tabiso Matibedi. Yes, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Program Leader. This is Tabiso from Soul City. How do I do it?
We are cutting you. We are going to the next one if you are not ready.
Can I come in?
No, you can't come in. I only identified 3 people. I'm going to take an extra, Precious Banda, and we are closed. You put all that you want to say on the chat. Precious, you can come in.
Thank you, Program Director. But I think my name is Precious Banda from the Young Women of Africa. I'm happy that can people mute so that we hear one another, please? Thank you. I'm just happy that we are having this launch and conversation today, and we want to recommit, I think, the approach of working with civil society as a way to respond to the scourge of child rapes that result into babies. And it requires a comprehensive and intersectional approach that addresses the complex and interconnected factors that contribute to these children. So the campaigns that we must focus on include comprehensive sexual education. We must ensure that sexual education is really being given, including in community meetings and platforms, improving access to healthcare. That children also must be given, greater access to healthcare in friendly environments in health institutions, and that's why all these departments must come on board and they report that were being presented must really be shared to go to the ground and to the grassroots so that they are discussed further in community engagement so that support is framed. And you must look at also the socio-economic factors.
Precious. Yeah, Precious, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to stop you there, but I'm not stopping you from contributing. Please go on the chat. You are hammering on very good points. Please elaborate on them. When you talk about community comprehensive sexuality, what do you mean by that? Please put that clearly for us on the chat. And I wish that all of you who are online, if it was possible for you to be in this room with us, because we are really having a great conversation. And we don't want you to be left behind the next time. Hoping that next time we'll go to a bigger room. But I'm not going to close off now, just with the last one. I want to touch us again on the issues of disability. She mentioned something that, when it comes to the issue of disabilities, we leave out the key information. You'll find that, in all facilities in the whole city of Tshwane, we don't even have a single person, who can interpret or who can sign in such a way that, when a disability person who can't hear, who can't sign, maybe when you are in a wheelchair, it's better, but people think that, no, you don't have sex. That what is the more information? What will you want to see when you go to the facility?
I think it's obvious, and we've been talking about this. Now it's a matter of implementing it. When one goes to the clinic, you want to access it, and what is the way to access that? Is through a proper reasonable accommodation. If I am blind, what assistant device do I need in order for me to get health care? If I'm pregnant and I'm a deaf woman, and sometimes the rudeness, maybe we just need to go back to basics. Train the nurses before they get placed in clinics, or include that education. Include disability awareness, sign language. There are so many things that we can do. You go to hospital, there is access to all spoken languages. South African Sign Language is an official language. Yeah. It deserves the same status as any other spoken language. It's very simple. Everyone in this room, we know what to do. We just need to implement. We've done advisory, we've done all of those things. In order for us to prevent pregnancy, child pregnancy, we just need to act. And so many people get raped, get abused. They have nowhere to go because we are not implementing what is on the policy. So again, we all have the solutions. Implement, support the policies that are being there. Nurses and doctors, maybe what we can start implementing is that when they're in university, include sign language, include disability awareness, because they service everybody. It's time for us to actually stop talking and doing. Yes. We have technology to assist. We have apps. We just need to provide resources to ensure that everybody is not left behind.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, now it's time to act. So in closure, I want to thank all my panel members. I want to thank all the people who have participated, and also to remind us colleagues that, remember, when you see someone pregnant, it means they had an unprotected sex. Let's not talk about the 0.1%. And unprotected sex, we know it's a risk for what? For HIV. For contracting HIV, for contracting STIs. I'm not even gonna talk about the other side, that HIV invites TB and all the other opportunistic infections. So if we don't deal with teenage pregnancy, you look at our statistics in South Africa, between the age of 19 going up to 34, that is where we are currently having new HIV infections. So, and they go together with all the high number of teenage pregnancies that we are seeing. So, thank you very much, Deputy Minister. It is a crisis indeed. It needs our attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kensani. Ushia ipanel yako ngemva. Ushia ipanel yako on my stage. Thank you very much, panel members. Colleagues, we are really running out of time. GCIS is ready to kick us out of this room. I have only 2 quick agenda items that are left. Ms. Puti Mabelebele from the department is going to give us a short summary of where to from here. And then after that, we will have our closing remarks from our Deputy Minister. So the DM and Puti are sitting and standing between you and the snack. So if you don't manage her, you must all give her faces so that she doesn't stand here for long. Over to you, Puti. Colleagues, can we please welcome Puti to the stage?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very fruitful morning, and I want to believe that we have come here to actually re-look at a conversation that we have all been having for quite some time. But at the end of the day, everyone was speaking in one voice, saying that where to from here. At the end of the day, every speech landed at where to from here. And the clarity that this particular forum gave is that we need, whatever discussions that we had here today must lead to a building block towards an action plan, a clear action plan, resourced, and also having responsibilities assigned to whether institutions or individuals, not a new action plan. An action plan that can also be integrated and still be aligned to all the other action plans that currently exist that are going to ensure that we advance this fight against teenage pregnancy. So what we were doing here in terms of where to from here is action planning. And all of us that are here, if you don't find yourself in this action plan that eventually will be shared, you must worry. Because from what we were discussing here, we were saying it's going to take all of us actioning, implementing, walking the talk, and doing something about this that we are involved in, including those that are not here. In summary, what we have captured is that, one, there's a cost of a teenage pregnancy, and there is a cost attached to teenage pregnancy if we don't deal with it, and it is a crisis. And there is a cost to inaction. And we must make sure that everyone is alive to this cost. We must break it down so that when I'm in my home, I'm able to say, this is what it costs the entire nation, my own family, myself, when we don't prevent teenage pregnancy. There needs to be focused prevention and not reaction. And this particular prevention must be very responsive and relevant. There must be relevance to it. And we must also remove teenagers from the lens of being vulnerable, but to also look at teenagers as valuable. That's very important. So there must be an action around that. How do we then ensure that our teenagers' self-confidence is built such that they begin to see themselves as not vulnerable, but as valuable? Because when you're vulnerable and your posture is vulnerable, you become vulnerable to everyone. It means you get preyed on. Now, also, we learned that there are lessons which have been learned from pre-COVID era to now during post-COVID. But the lessons that we have learned and the successes that we have advanced as a country pre-COVID we must now reflect on them and say those lessons, which ones are applicable post-COVID now, having learned what we learned from the period during COVID, which has turned the tide around. But also be mindful of the current dynamics of the youthful generation that we have. What are they in? What spaces? What's happening currently in our society? Emphasis was placed on moral degeneration as to us ensuring that there is moral regeneration programs, but involving the family from the onset. All of us come from families, but also involving us as a community from the beginning. Under policy and legislative the policy and legislative environment, there's clear direction that there's a need for some policies to be reviewed and to be looked at in terms of the current trends and for continuous review to happen. Policies, easy to review policies because policies are adaptable and they must adapt to the environment. Secondly, we must also look at the issues of rights towards responsibility or rights with responsibilities and not just emphasize rights only based approach. Institutional mechanisms and systems that should enable this action plan. It's clear that this particular action plan is going to be driven by the deputy ministers and the identified institutions. But within that action plan, there'll be a breakdown in terms of responsibilities that we all have in advancing this action plan. And that particular, with regard to institutional mechanisms and systems, there's a need to also create an engagement or war room to continuously monitor, evaluate the action plan that we're going to develop against teenage pregnancy. And that particular engagement or war room needs to be resourced. Clear, defined roles of community-based institutions. In other words, from our traditional to religious authorities, they need to be active participants in this program, and there must be clear, defined roles and responsibilities attached. Clear, defined programs in spaces where there are youths and teenagers, by youths and teenagers. You can't leave the young people outside this space. Young people have got to be involved from planning to decision-making to implementation if we are indeed wanting to work together. We must also ensure that within our institutional mechanisms and systems, we create safe spaces for teenagers to participate, but also, yes, for safe spaces for teenagers to participate. And thirdly, our action plan needs to mobilize and foster collaborations, partnerships, and maximize participation. These are the three main things that were picked up from the discussions. Evidence-based interventions, creation of a live data tool to determine prevalence to enable localized interventions, awareness, information, and education, the language and the accessibility thereof. Accessibility to deal with issues of diversity in terms of different cultural backgrounds, but also diversity in line with the issues of persons with disabilities, as has been mentioned, so that all have access at once to data and information and everything else, and access to services. Accessibility and inclusion issues to also include boys. Boys are at the center of this. As we talk about youths, it mustn't be, our programs must not just only be focused on the young girl, but must also be inclusive of young boys. Disaggregation of data, I think I touched on it, but in summary of the interventions into about 7 points is that we must scale up comprehensive sexuality and reproductive health education, and that must also be scaled up even to duty bearers. By duty bearers, I'm talking about officials that are delivering services and so forth, so that they are youth-friendly and access and inclusive free youth-friendly services. Third, enable families and communities to discuss sex so that we destigmatize myths, perceptions, and sex, including destigmatizing sexual education for persons with disabilities. Strengthen enforcement of laws. There must be an administrative will. We must look at our protocols and tools and say, where are the gaps? Why are we not doing what must be done as duty bearers when certain mechanisms have been put in place for us to ensure justice prevails? Support teen mothers and teen fathers. It's important. The investment in data and accountability, I've spoken to it, so that it informs better policy planning of teenage pregnancy amongst youth and youth with disabilities, but also strengthening protection and safeguarding mechanisms. I think, in short, I've tried to summarize and capture everything. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Signing off from the way forward.
Thank you very much, Puti, and apologies for putting you under enormous pressure. you will share your notes with us as we compile a report for this engagement. So, colleagues, that is the end of this conversation from my side. I'm not going to speak after the DM. So, after the DM has closed the session, we are all going to go to the first floor just to grab a cup of coffee. Yeah, we said it's breakfast, so DM, you can't take us to 1 o'clock because we had said breakfast. They will expect lunch. So, but we've got a snack there for you to grab as you are walking out and going home and thinking about the conversations that we've had today. I think we've seen progress based on the data that was presented. There has been progress. There has been a decrease in the number of child and teenage pregnancies, but the decrease is not at a fast enough pace to take us to the Vision 2030. You have seen the work that has been done, coordinated by the department, coordinating the different stakeholders that are contributing to this agenda, and you've seen the roadmap where the department wants to take this agenda to. So thank you very much, colleagues, for being such a wonderful crowd for me. I am now going to hand over to the Deputy Minister for her closing remarks and her releasing us after her remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. C, for facilitating and moderating this session. Colleagues, let me appreciate all of you for marking this day as a turning point to addressing really the child and teenage pregnancy crisis we have. Our children, some are in primary schools, indeed are getting pregnant, often through heinous abuse. This is not normal. We can't normalize it. It is not acceptable, and we cannot continue with it. It is why the consolidated approach that we have taken under the 7th administration is an approach of being bold, being united with our people as South Africa for a united response that matches the gravity of the situation. Now, Puti has summarized what's next to happen, but also speaking to the slide that DDG Chabalala spoke to. But the call to action to every segment of society is important. That government leaders and officials must treat this as an emergency. Allocate the budgets, enforce the policies, and cut the red tapes. When we leave here, each department must double down on its commitment, whether in hiring additional social workers in rural areas or ensuring every clinic has contraceptives in stock, or training every prosecutor on handling statutory rape. We will integrate our effort like never before because our success depends on our unity. To civil society and community activists, keep pushing us. Keep innovating on the ground. You remain our eyes, our ears, and often the hands that deliver the services. We need you to hold community dialogues, provide safe spaces, and to be compassionate supporters for young people who have nowhere else to turn except the communities they live in. Your role in changing cultural norms and supporting survivors is invaluable. We as government will continue to support and to listen to you. To parents and communities, or community members, this starts at home. Talk to your children about values of respect, the importance of education, supervise and guide them. Don't just buy a smartphone and not pay attention on locking specific access. Because we buy these expensive phones, but we don't even know how to protect our children from online bullying, online violence. We see it every time. But it starts there. Guide them. Ensure that there is protocol we follow as well to ensure that we protect our children. Protect them from exploitation and abuse as well. Report any illegal activities, including criminal activities. I think it was former Deputy Minister Bokopani Zulu that when a child is raped, we even go as far as negotiating in Tlaulo. We must hold people accountable. Even if we are implementing our traditional or cultural things, what is wrong is wrong. It can never be right. What we seek is accountability in that wrong. And part of it is to really make sure that the well-being, the mental health, and the wellness of a child is not affected by actions that we take. And let's not also force children into marriages when they are not ready. These forced marriages that we know, they happen quietly, silently, ukutwala and others. Let's end cultural practices that are harmful. We know culture is a good thing. It can help us. We want to maintain cultural practices that build society, not cultural practices that harms society. And that is what holds us into a legal duty. So silence and inaction make you complicit. No bystanders in our communities, so we cannot accept that. Our communities must unite in saying no more. Our girls, our daughters of the nation, and we will not let them be harmed. And when we have young people who are sexually active, let's support them so that they can have protected sex. You know, I want to say this is not in my prepared notes that we did. Sex shouldn't be made to be evil. It shouldn't be. For those who have or who understand sexuality, it shouldn't be. But it should happen in a protected manner, in a consented manner, but also it should happen in a way that is healthy for people. And that for me is quite important, that we look at things that work for society and build society to be better. So when young people, when children are exposed and they are vulnerable, and they end up becoming young mothers, let's support them so that they can go back to school. Their lives don't have to end by virtue of having been impregnated at a young age. They can thrive and they can have a better life. And to young people here and across South Africa, we are doing this for you, but also with you. And we want young people's voices to be heard. So what was started by DSD, we must continue. Those young people's assemblies must continue. But they must be led by communities. They must be led by young people themselves. So I urge young people also to become activists. Ms. Tin, you are under pressure with all the young people that are here. Continue to become activists, educate yourself, empower yourselves, so that you look out for yourselves and for your friends, your peers. Spread accurate information and help change attitude amongst your own peers. And I want to say this, we are not leaving young men, boys behind. Young men and boys remains allies in this work. Their lives matter. We don't want broken men for the future. And that's why we must work with boys as they are young. We must challenge toxic behavior when we see it, and we must help young people, all of them, boys, girls, and non-binary, to understand diversity, understand respect, inclusion, and why it matters for them now, for the future. DDG Shabalala spoke about what's going to happen as part of our roadmap. There's going to be teenage pregnancy in Daba in September. I'm encouraging all of you, including those who are online. This was, let's regard this, from expecting 40 people closed. We had over 300 people. What Dr. Kensani said, you might require a stadium to host that in Daba, because South Africans care for South Africa and people want to be a part of these solutions. So that in Daba is very important, DDG, to hear, to listen to the voices of South Africans, but also to move this work forward. And she also spoke about the strategy. The time is ticking. It is July. The strategy must be launched by March 2026. We are not going to come with any excuse. So all your officials, DDG, the different departments, the UN family, the civil society, task teams, steering committee, must work. In March, we launch. We are not saying that we are going to have draft 1 or draft 2. No, we launch. Because when we say 1st April 2026, implementation collectively must take shape. So we are asking everybody, those that have presented speaking about models, it's evidence-based. Those speaking about programs, it's evidence-based. So let's make sure that everything now is put together. When we go out to implement what is going to happen. So we will lead. Again, I'm going to say it, and I'm not shying away. We will lead this war. Any interpretation of war, we are not suggesting anyone that causes conflict amongst us. The war that makes sure that our children, as our constitution prescribes, are protected. That is what we are launching. And that's what all deputy ministers key to this will work towards, supporting the officials that are working in various departments. This addresses social, economic, and structural issues. We will work with yourselves through structures relevant, including through SANEC, through the National Council that is set to be established on gender-based violence and femicide, led by our minister, the national task teams that are included, and we'll work with traditional leaders, faith leaders, all civil society leaders, including private sector for that matter. We have talked. This was necessary. We spoke about protecting our future. This is more than just a slogan. It is a directive that says that we must act. Our future as a country lies in the dreams and potential of young people. And again, I want to say, we cannot just speak about slogans. We must speak about action. So in closing, I want to echo the sentiments of Batopeli. Our duty as this 7th administration is to put people first. That's the directive we got from President Ramaphosa. We are here to build a future and a better life for all people, especially young people. The measures of our success will be in the lived realities and improved and quality of life of young people who must finish school, who must be helped to avoid and manage pregnancies, and those who survive abuse must get justice and healing. The communities must rally to ensure that no perpetrator finds refuge amongst them. Thank you to our partners. Thank you to the UN family Thank you to officials in government in all departments, including the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability. I want to say thank you to the Gates Foundation, SAFAIDS, and SANEC Civil Society Forum. Thank you to SANEC entirely. The CEO is no longer here with us, but please extend our appreciation. Thank you to our MC, Ms. Tokeka, who's with UNAIDS Global Office. She's done this voluntarily. We don't have resources, but we could rely on partners to make this work. And I want to say to all of you, if we steer this ship, maybe ensuring that we leverage on all resources accordingly, we can make this work. We can make this work. Let children be children, and those exposed to vulnerability, they must be supported, and let's ensure all of them thrive. That's our mandate, to actively and to respond to the needs of South Africans. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Snack is served on the first floor.
We want to do a group photo, all the panelists and the Deputy Minister and Ms. SH, just to align up here.
Colleagues, may I request everybody that participated in the program, please step forward for a group photo, including the panelists.